peace, 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 love, harmony, and light. What it do, what it do, what it do. Was good, was good, was good, was good. Man, who would have thought, right? Two back to back? Nah, nah, we ain't doing that. But guess what? Yes, we are. All right, yes, we are. Let me just make sure that we good. Now, all right, give me a second here. Okay, man, this light here is giving a little shadow. Hey, Halito, hold up, man. This I'm trying to get comfortable with this light. I want to put the light up so it could show my face, but it's giving a little glare on the screen. So I'm trying to see if I could avoid that. Mm-mm-mm. Yes, yes, my brothers and sisters. You already know how we do. Man, I'm like, I went outside. Well, earlier today, I was sun gazing. So, seeing that I was out of town, my brother told me like the weather wasn't too great. But since I've gotten back, the sun is out. So the American Aboriginal sun is back. So the sun is out. So today was a great day, like every other day. And I did some sun gazing. I did some push-ups. Just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. I really want to get back into my workout routine, so, me and my brother, we could start training, you know what I mean? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, man, brother Dion, man, where you been, bruh? You just disappeared on me, man. I hope everything is good. Everything is good. Emmett Moore was good, man. My brother Taloff, what he do? Chain 1C Fury, Taino-Carib-Arawak. Man, listen, that's why I'm gonna get into the Tainos, the Caribs, the Arawaks, because it's very important that we learn our history and we learn the connection, between all the people in the Americas, because we are facing what we are facing right now solely, because of divide and conquer, the technology of the invader. You feel me? Teaching us that we are different. Just like when I tell, a lot of people was like, oh man, how could you be an American Indian when you have an accent? I'm like, man, like that is the most dumbest thing I've ever heard. Okay. And the truth of the matter is, we were called Americans even before our brothers and sisters here in the United States, because we were the first point of contact. All right. So even before brothers and sisters on the mainland was called Americans, you know what I'm saying? We were called Americans in the Caribbean, in South America. You know what I'm saying? So it's just amazing. Like when people speak from a point of ignorance, at times it's not even worth it to get mad, like real talk, because you just have to feel pity for them, because at that time, it was pretty much called Turtle Island to a certain extent. All right. And certain people in Panama called it Abiyala, which was another name for the American continent. But for the most part, it was known as Turtle Island. And I will go into some of the references on why it was called Turtle Island based on certain cultures. So once again, to know where you're from and who you are, you have to know about the culture. You have to know things. So when you articulate yourself, you'll have a little bit of your story, not his story, but of your story, so that you could start teaching your children, all right, teaching your family. And for me, this is what this is all about, okay? Getting the information, doing the research, all right, cross-referencing information and bringing it to you, all right? Being born in Dominica, it's like I said before, it's a small island. Literally, right now the population is less than 80,000. Okay, that's how small the island is. But most people, migrated, to various parts of the world. So the population is really, really small. But one of the things I always tell folks is that I have always had a nationality. Okay, in Dominica, we didn't call ourselves Black. We didn't call ourselves African American. We didn't call ourselves Afro-Caribbean. We didn't do none of that. Oh yes, absolutely, brother. I'm here. Listen, I'm like a rock for my people. So, I'm not going to fall. Even when this physical body is gone, my spirit is still going to be here, because my words, the information that I bring to the people is going to live on. So that's why I do what I do. You did. All right. But it's great seeing you too. Welcome back. So talking about, the culture and having a nationality. Now, even if Dominica, was named, by Columbus, which seeing that he supposedly discovered it on a Sunday. So he called it Dominica, Domingo, Sunday. However, the country, we already had its indigenous name for it, which was Wetsi Kubuli. So I tell people, I know my culture, I know my history. I'm not thinking about this, I'm not guessing this. I know who I am. And I'm not here to prove who I am to anybody or disprove. That's not what I'm doing. All I'm doing is letting people know that it's important, it's imperative that you know. If you don't know, then it's okay. Try to find out, learn, and get as much information as you can. Not because you have to prove it to anybody, no, but because you want to teach your children. You want to be able to have them teach their children. You want to be able to share information with other brothers and sisters. To me, that's the main purpose. I suggest that you know. Not because you have to prove anything to anybody, because we ain't got to prove nothing to nobody, because nobody's proving anything to us. All right. All they do is, oh, well, I'm this and then all of a sudden we just accept what everybody else say. You feel me? Everybody could come into our land and be called an American. But when we do it, it's a problem. I mean, I just can't get that, man. You see what I'm saying? Like every other ethnic group could come here and call themselves an American. And everybody's cool with that. But when the original Americans say that they're Americans, all of a sudden you want to say, oh, well, you're not proud to be African. Well, you're not proud to be this. You're not proud to be that. Like, seriously, yo? Like, for real? Even right now, if I'm not mistaken, if that information is not correct, then I stand to be corrected. But there's a Nigerian woman that wants to run for mayor, I think, or governor in Chicago. And my thing is this, like, why these people, and they call themselves Americans, why these people always want to come here? And I know it's already a setup. It's already a setup because they are always taking immigrants, and no disrespect, man, I'm just keeping it real. They're always taking immigrants, putting them in positions in our communities so that they could keep us down. And that's why I tell people, all we have is ourselves. All we have is ourselves, man. We ain't got nobody, brothers and sisters. All we have is us, and only us could change them around. All right. So getting back on point or on track with being born island in the Caribbean called Dominica, I had a nationality. All right, and my nationality was Dominican. All right, like I said, we never considered ourselves black. But don't get me wrong, they still had the divide and conquer, situation back in Dominica. Yes, it was kind of like light versus dark. We never used the word black. Honestly, the only time I heard people calling themselves black is when I came into the mainland. All right. But in the Caribbean, we didn't call ourselves black because we had a nationality. All right. So I tell people one of the main reasons why calling yourself black is detrimental to who you are is because it is not a nationality. Now, you could call yourself anything if there were not, ramifications or consequences, and not just consequences, but negative consequences for calling yourself just a color. All right. So you are causing harm to yourself because it means that you are dead within law. You have no rights. You don't exist. You are 3/5 of a human. So I'll go into the Taino, the Carib, the Arawaks, and just for a lot of the people that are from the Caribbean, all right, thinking that they are immigrants in their own land. Once again, I'm just bringing the information to you, let you know that we are Americans. As a matter of fact, we were the first Americans. That's why it was called First Contact, because when they first came into the Caribbean, Christopher Columbus and the likes of, some of, not even, I mean, the conquistadors came later, but, mainly Columbus, all right? When he first came, he came into Hispaniola. At that time, it wasn't even called Dominican Republic. I think it was just called Haiti at that time, Haiti at that time. And because of the divide and conquer, they divided the land when they started mixing with the people to create a lighter version of what we so-called, or we call now, Dominican Republicans. You feel me? But when he first came into Hispaniola in 1490, late 1492, early 1493, Haiti was in the Americas. Haiti was what was called the Americas, the Indies, the West Indies. That's why today they still call us West Indians. So I tell people, I know who I am. Don't get it twisted. All right. I'm not an Indian from the mainland, but I'm an Indian from the West Indies. And of course, they call everything the West. All right. But doing more research, come to find out a lot of my bloodline is what's called Anianwea, Cherokee, and Choctaw. All right. But it's also a lot of other little tribes because we are the people that mixed amongst each other. All right. So I'm going to go into, you know, some documents, you know, that you guys could, and it's going to tell you a little bit about the history. It's going to tell you a little bit about the spirituality, about the culture. And that's the main reason for doing this second video. I was inspired to do it. And like I said, I have a lot of information I have a plethora of information in my arsenal, you know, that when I come across things that, you know, I just run across, I always bookmark it or save it or do something at a later date. I always come and do a video to share the information. So that is the basis of the video. And Dominica, like I said, was called Weti Kubuli, which means, I think, slender is her body, or I think it was, yes, slender is her body or beautiful is her body. But basically that's what it meant. All right. And then when Christopher Columbus supposedly discovered Dominica, he called it, you know, Dominica, because he so-called discovered it on a Sunday. But we already had an indigenous name for Dominica, just so y'all know. All right. And just like a lot of other places all over the Americas, we had indigenous names for those places until they were changed. And a lot of them still do. All right. And I'm going to prove to you again, like when we are going into the history, all right, of those cultures, you would see that it makes no mention of being from Africa. Okay. So I tell people, stop with the madness. All right. Stop with the madness, please. Now, I get it. That's what you were taught. All right, cool. But because you were taught it, it doesn't mean it was true. You feel me? Sometimes challenge what they teach you in school. If you truly get an understanding of what, you know, colonization is about, you'll realize that it's not about telling you who you are, but who they want you to be. And that is the whole basis of colonization. Divide, conquer, genocide, lying to the people, taking the indigenous people out of their homes so that they will not be able to regain their birthright. What is their birthright? The land. So this is what all this is about. It's about land. It's not about money, because money comes from the land. It's not about gold, because gold it came from the land. It's not about silver. Silver came from the land. It's not really even about the people, because guess what? The flesh came from the land. So ultimately, it's about the land. And that's one of the things I am forcing home to you so you get it. We got to come back to the land. All right? Come back to the land. Get yourself grounded again. That is the key. Getting ourselves grounded again. All right? So, I have already shared this with you guys. I mean, I put all the links in the description below so you would have a point of reference. But I'm going to start with something I already shared for you guys. And once again, it's not to convince you who you are or who you are not. I'm just showing you the proof. The proof. So when you talk to people, you'll have enough information to reference. Okay? There you go. K-Seek. There you go. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. I see we got our Taino brother know what he's talking about. You did. All right? So even if I've already spoken about that and showed you the link, I'm going to go back to the History channel and show you, once again, they're showing the description of the people. All right? The description of the people. So that link is also there below. So when you're talking to your family, I'm giving you enough information so that you could show them, you could share with them. So instead of trying to convince them, just say, hey, you know what, do me a favor. Could you just check out this article right here? Check out this video right here. And that's what we have to do. Somebody said, I took my son to the park, and when we got home, we found his goldfish dead, which is a hard situation for any first-time parent. How do we explain autoerotic, what? Axiscination for man, listen, I can't even pronounce that. Okay. No disrespect. I can't even pronounce that word right now. Okay, so I'm gonna just keep it real. I've never seen that word before. So I don't know. I really can't assist you with that. But if that were my son, then I would explain to him that in life, there's no such thing as death, and explain to him that it's just part of life. For a 4-year-old, it's kind of tough. But the easiest way I would just say is, you know what, the fish is in a better place. Just until he or she's able to, comprehend more. But that's a big word. I don't know what that word means. All right, and I'm not trying to be funny. All right, but the energy, let him know that everything is energy. Okay, or smothering to death. Oh, okay. Well, let him know that. Thank you for that. Let him know that everything is energy, and that seeing that he connected and bonded with the fish, then the fish is always going to be alive in his memory. Okay, the fish is always going to be a part of him. So let him know that the fish didn't really die. All right, the fish is going to live in his memory, so therefore it's always going to be alive. So that's my way of breaking that down to a 4-year-old, if I had a 4-year-old. So I hope that makes sense. All right, cool. All right, so yes, so we're gonna continue. So like I said, I'm gonna share that information with you from that channel there. Okay, here we go. All right, now I'm not gonna read the entire thing because I've gone over this like a lot of times. Actually, I've literally broken that down and read everything. I think in at least 3 videos, one on the Chief Kalanago channel and one on this channel. So don't forget to also subscribe to the Chief Kalanago channel, just in case YouTube decide I might or may have done something that would cause me to be restricted, and I may have to revert to the Chief Kalanago channel. So please go subscribe, not now, but whenever you get a chance, you could subscribe, so that we have another means or another point of communication. All right, I appreciate that. Now let me see where we are at. So here we go. I'm trying to see, hold on for a second, guys, before I continue. I just want to make sure that, just in case while I'm doing this, let me see if I could pull it up on my phone so I am able to see some comments in the meantime, so I'm able to respond, periodically when I'm going, while I'm reading. Okay, so this is from the History channel, and I'm going to show you once again from so many different sources which I've done in many books speaking on prehistoric America. It always speaks of the people of a darker hue, a copper, a bronze complexion. So for me, all those resources or all those sources cannot be telling a lie, because if I could, I could really, if it was just one video, not one video, but if it was just one source, then I could say, you know what, they might be a little biased. But for the most part, every prehistoric book that I have read on the Americas, the description of the people has always been dark, or copper, or bronze, or cinnamon. Now, come on, and trust me, I have read a lot of books on prehistoric America, because what I realize is this: history books are not going to give you the true depiction of the people and tell you the truth in its entirety. So I had to find a way to make my research a little more effective. And what worked for me was putting in searches for prehistoric America. And I started getting a lot of documents from the governmental archives and all these different things. And it really started opening up my eyes a little more. Even if, yes, my grandmother told me, I was Carib, I didn't quite have a full understanding of what that meant. Okay, I just knew that we were Caribs. We were taught in school that the Caribs were the first people, the Arawaks, the Tainos. I just knew that. But I didn't know the significance of being a descendant of Caribs or Arawaks or Tainos, because at the end of the day, we all mixed in. All right. My grandmother said Carib, but she actually looked like an Arawak. So I'm just saying, we literally intermingled, and I didn't know the significance of what it meant to be a Carib. All right, but now I know. Okay. And that came from, hey, knowledge, educating myself. Okay, so we have March 2nd. March 2nd, 2018, when the Native Americans were slaughtered in the name of civilization. Now, I'm not going to read the entire thing, because every time I read what our ancestors went through, I get a little bit emotional. And, I'm not going to do that this evening. So I'm just going to read that first part right here for you, where it says, okay, and ladies and gentlemen, my brothers and sisters, that link is below. For those of you who haven't seen that link ever before, then you could go ahead and click that link and read it yourself. It's in depth. It's a lot of information. And yeah, it's a beautiful read. And I've done that a few times, so I'm not going to be redundant and go over it again. But I just wanted to read just that one part that's highlighted. Okay, it says, their skin was dark. Now, I don't know if anybody could know what dark means. Okay, dark doesn't mean black. Okay, dark doesn't mean black. And that's where our people get confused, because you could still see in the dark. You could still see in the dark, but I doubt you could see through black. Okay, you can't see through black, but you could see in the dark. Just like your shadow. If you're walking in the sun, your shadow is dark, but yet still you could still see the ground. You could still see the grass. You could still see the gravels. That's called darkness. Okay? When you walk at night, if there's no lights, your eyes adjust to the dark. It doesn't adjust to the black. Okay? So, brothers and sisters, once again, it's about finding the best way to understand the information. All right. So there's a difference between dark and black. Okay. So their skin was dark. Their languages. Now, it didn't say their language. It said languages. So for many people who say, oh, well, you have an accent. Yes, because I'm from I was birthed, or I arrived on Earth in a different part of the Americas. And we had all these different languages. Okay, we had all these different accents, just like how somebody from New York may sound a little bit different from somebody in Kentucky or Alabama, which they may call country. All right. So once again, we all have accents. All right. Their languages were foreign. In other words, they were foreign to the people who came here. Okay. Once again, we had our languages, and it didn't say language, but languages, many. And their worldviews, and political, the worldviews and spiritual beliefs were beyond most white men's comprehension. All right, so they didn't say religion, okay? Our spiritual beliefs. Religion was something that was imposed on us. However, if we may say that we had what's called legion, and then we were introduced to religion. In other words, to do over, give us something new, convert us. All right. And in every document that I have read, it tells about our people not being Christians. Now, I'm not going to turn this into a religious debate, or I'm not going to turn it into a conversation about religion. No, I'm just giving you the facts. So let's not get religious on this one, please, because I don't want to offend anybody right now. Okay, maybe at another time I'll dive into that religion. But I just wanted to show you right here that, again, the complexion of the skin, they were dark. All right, now let us go to this link. The link is below. Well, I'm not going to do that one first. I'm going to do, let me see which one I'm going to do first. It's actually a lot of reading that we have to do. So guys, you know what? Let me just take it from the top. All right, we're going to do evening. And I have listened. A few people have, like I said before, have emailed me and said, hey, Chief, you know what? I'm talking about grown men and women. Chief, I can't read too well, So I love the lectures that you do when you read the books and all that. So I love it. You know, I'm catering. They were honest enough to let me know. So I'm doing that for a lot of our brothers and sisters who don't know how to read that well, but they could follow along. Okay. So here we are. Articles home, and that's a website. The link is below. It's called dr1.com/articles/Taino SHTML. All right, and that link is below, so you could also check it out for yourself. Now, Taino, pre-Columbian Dominican Republic. Who were the Taino? More than 1,500 years ago, the Arawak people of South America began to migrate northwards, eventually navigating the Orinoco River and exploring what is now the Caribbean and the Antilles. This migration would continue for hundreds of years until there was a presence of Arawaks on most Caribbean islands, including Cuba, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, and Hispaniola, the European name for what is now the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Okay? So I hope so far from the first paragraph, you know, they're telling us about the Arawaks, all right, the people of South America, all right? Nowhere you're going to hear anything about, well, they came from Africa and then they settled in America. No, they were from South America, all right, from South America. And they populated the Caribbean islands, including Cuba, Jamaica. So a lot of my Jamaican brothers and sisters, they think that they're Africans, but no. Yes, there is a mixture of Africans in the mix, in the blood, yes. But the original people are not Africans, and yes, they look like us. All right. So education is the key, my brothers and sisters. Okay. Although the tribes descended from the Arawak went under different names like Lokono, Lokayan, Carib, or Sinoboni, the Taino, which stood for the good people, all right, in Arawak, was the largest indigenous group under the umbrella of Arawak Indians, all right, Arawak Indians, and would be the first group of indigenous Indians to make contact with what? The European settlers, all right? So once again, in the Caribbean, South America, we were called Indians before anybody else. We were called Americans before anybody else. And I'm not saying that to insinuate that we are better. I'm just trying to let people know the relationship between the Caribbean, all South America and North America. All right? To know the relationship. That's what I'm letting people know. We are the same people. Okay? Okay, so the largest group of indigenous people under the umbrella of Arawak. Now, another thing I wanted to point out in the second paragraph was what? Didn't I tell you guys this in a video before? Every name that we associated ourselves with, it always boiled down to what? The people. And I mentioned that in a video earlier, and here we go proving myself. Just like what Annie and we are, the principal people. We have always called ourselves the people. Always. All right? Everything literally translates to the people for the most part. Okay? Now, let us proceed. When Columbus landed in what is now the Dominican Republic in 1492, there was a vibrant and flourishing civilization already present on the island of Haiti. You hear that? So when these people come and tell you, oh, well, you know, no, they came from slaves and all that, my brothers and sisters, don't believe that. And come on, man, I'm not the only one who has been showing this. A lot of people they have been showing this and been talking about that. But now we are specifically talking about the Taino, the Carib, and the Arawaks. Okay? So when Columbus reached into the Americas, all right, there was a vibrant and flourishing civilization already present in the island of Haiti. This was the Taino name for what Columbus renamed Hispaniola. Okay, it was Haiti. And at that time, it wasn't even Dominican Republic. It was just Haiti. And the whole of Hispaniola was called Haiti. And of course, he renamed it Hispaniola. Though the Taino Indians of Quezcaya, the Taino name for the part of the island that is now Dominican Republic. You see that? At that time, it wasn't even named Dominican Republic. It was Kwaskaya or Kwaskeya, the Taino name for the part of the island that is now Dominican Republic. And once again, it is all the divide and conquer, making them think that they're different people. So now you have Dominicans fighting Haitians because they're fighting for the same territory, not realizing they're the same people. Of course, you have some, Spanish blood mixed in, especially with the Dominican side, but they're trying to make these people think that they're different. All right. Now, we're quite peaceful and deeply spiritual what group? They were a spiritual group. And this society was one of the tremendous resourceful and energy. Why do you think Haiti was the first country to gain its independence? Because it was a very spiritual group, deeply spiritual group. Okay? And it says the society was one of the tremendous resourceful and energy, because we were using our spiritual practices, our rituals, our culture. That's how we were able to, that's why the Haitians were able to gain their independence. They used their arts and the craft, what people call voodoo. And people think voodoo came from Africa. No, it didn't. Our Haitian brothers and sisters brought voodoo to Africa. Don't let them fool you. It's the other way around. It is the other way around, but people will argue that point because, once again, of the lack of knowledge. It's called ignorance. Okay? It's called ignorance. The Taino. The Taino had what? Man, listen, I'm not making this up. I just showed you from the History Channel. The Taino had what? Dark golden brown skin. Man, I mean, I can't make this up. And I'm gonna go back to the History Channel again, right? The natives, what they had dark skin. So how can we make this up? Every reference that I've showed you, whether it may be in prehistoric, the History Channel, those documents right here, they're giving you the description of the physical attributes of the people in relation to their complexion. All right. Now, not all of them had dark skin. All right. Like I said, we had the red bones as well. Okay. We had the red bones in certain places. So, that skin varies from a red bone to a darker hue, almost what you may call black. All right. So let us put this in perspective. All right. So nowadays you have the Tainos in the Caribbean, in South America, and they have lightened them up. They have whitewashed them. And now the same thing is happening. Same thing here on the mainland. Okay. The same thing is happening here on the mainland. We are the original people, but you have the natives claiming to be the original people. It's the same thing with the Taino. I'm going to read it again. The Taino had dark golden brown skin. You dig? And we are still here. Similar to that of their distant what? Distant South American relatives. Okay? So here we go. We are confirming that their distant South American relatives were also dark skinned and were average in stature with dark, flowing, coarse hair. Okay? With coarse hair. Do you know what coarse means? Rough. So when they're showing you that the original Indians with this long blue eyes and long hair, no. All right, no. No disrespect to the natives. I'm just speaking the truth. You are not the original people of the land. Or at least the people that call themselves natives today. And large, slightly oblique eyes. Though modern depictions of the Taino Indians at the time of Columbus's arrival are of savage Indians parading around naked, the Taino were in fact highly skilled at weaving cotton and clothing. Clothing or lack thereof was used as an identifier of class and rank within the society. Men generally went naked or wore a loincloth called the nakwa. Okay, the nakwa. Now, let us look at this word nakwa here for a second. I'm going to copy this word, and let us just divert here for a second. Okay, go to Google. All right, paste. Now, check this out. Nakwa. Nakwa for the clothing style among, let me show you this. Look at this. Now, like I said, I'm not making these things up. I'm showing you our proof. Nakwa. Now, let us go back to the article real quick and read what they're saying. And I just highlighted that word nakwa. Men generally went naked or wore a loincloth called nakwa, right? Nakwa. Now let's go back to here. Nakwa, city in Dominican Republic. Nakwa is the capital of Maria, Trinidad, Sanchez province in the northeastern Dominican Republic, a medium-sized town. Nakwa's economy relies on the production of agricultural products, principally rice, coconuts, and cocoa bean. Okay? So I'm showing you the connection here. And the men generally went naked. And like I said, we were a spiritual people. So there wasn't no homosexual activities, you know what I'm saying? A brother walking around naked, a brother talking about, yo, I want to hit that. Nah, man, we wasn't doing that. All right, we wasn't doing that. That's a European culture, man. That's a Greek culture. That is not part of our culture because we were not vibrating in such a low frequency. And I'm just going to keep it real. So if anybody on here, you know, be sword fighting, you know, man, no disrespect to you, but I'm just showing you the facts. All right. We wasn't sword fighting on the islands. And I'm talking about that's in 1492. That is a Greek or Greco culture. And we were walking around naked. So just imagine that. That's how pure at heart and mind we were. You feel me? So we wasn't sword fighting, man. All right. Single women walked around naked, and married women covered their genitals with aprons made of cotton to palm fibers, the length of which was a sign of rank. Okay, even the women walk around naked. So it goes to show you at that time the state of mind of our people. We were not a carnal people. All right, we were not a people vibrating in a low frequency. You heard that in 1492. We were a very spiritual, very full of energy people. So even when our women walk around naked, we didn't disrespect them. You know, brothers wasn't walking around talking about, yo, son, she got a fat ass, son. I want to hit that, son. We wasn't talking about that, and we were not calling our women bitches. You feel me? So I want to take you back to our culture where we respected each other, where we honored our women. All right? I'm just saying. And a lot of times today, people see women wearing things and talking about, oh, she dressing like a hoe. What you mean she dressing like a hoe? Who told you that? Huh? The invaders told you that? The colonizers told you that? When we came from a culture where we were walking around practically naked? No, you know what changed is the mindset of the people. The people has become, they have literally lowered themselves into a canal state of thinking. But we were always a people that love to walk around naked. The truth, I don't like clothes, keeping it real. And that's just natural to me, man. But of course, the mindset of the people have changed. All right. They have poisoned our minds, making us think everything we did was negative. Everything we did was bad. Everything we did was evil. Both sexes painted their bodies on special occasions and wore earrings, nose rings, and necklaces, which were sometimes made of gold. You hear that? That is us. That's our people. You feel me? Now check this out. Taino kingdoms. Now, of course, they say that we came from slaves, right? But from the very beginning, what did they say? Let me go back, because you see me, I like to show and prove, man. I like to show and prove. Now, what did they say? The Taino had what? Dark, golden brown skin. Golden brown skin. Do you know what dark, golden brown skin looked like? Just like mine. You know what I'm saying? So we had the Taino kingdoms, but yet still, oh, no, they came on slave ships from Africa. Yeah, okay. Y'all could fool me with that bullshit. Taino kingdoms. The Taino Indians lived in organized, hierarchically arranged kingdoms. Hierarchically, kingdoms. Communities were divided into three social classes. The Nabarias, who were the working class. The Ni Tainos, or the sub-chiefs and noblemen, which included the Bohiqui, the Bohiques, or priest and medicine men, and the Caciques, or the chief. Each Taino kingdom was ruled by a Taino Cacique, or chieftain, and at that time of Columbus' arrival, there were 5 Taino kingdoms in Quezcaya. You hear that? 5 Taino kingdoms in Quezcaya. In one area alone, there were 5 Taino kingdoms, and that was in 1492. What y'all telling me about? We came here on slave ships. What the hell is wrong with these people? Huh? Man, y'all better recognize and stop listening to these people. Like I told y'all before, take y'all children out of these people's school, man. For real. Okay? Cacique, Guacanagarix kingdom was in the province of Marién, which is now known as Samana. Cacique Coanabo, one of the most famous Taino chieftains, ruled the province of Siquayos. Cacique Quarianex, leader of the Taino revolt, ruled the province of Macua. Hahabo. Cacique Behichio held dominion over the province of Zaraqua, which was in the southeastern peninsula, and Cacique Kutubanama, or Kayako, ruled the province of Hiqui, or Hiqua. Though the Taino kingdoms were ruled by Taino chieftains, it is a little known fact that Taino societies were matriarchal in nature. Once again, I'm showing y'all the proof because we have so much respect for our women. Now, the reasoning behind this fact is that though men wielded a considerable amount of power in the communities, it was the Taino women who actually chose the cacique in the particular kingdoms. In other words, the women were the ones who chose the chiefs. All right? The women were the ones who chose the chiefs. So for all you men walking around talking about, oh, I'm the king of my domain. No, man, the woman is the king of the domain, bruh, not you. Not you. And that's not to put any brother down. That's just what it is. All right? That is just what it is. In this regard, women were important because unlike men, the Tainos could trace royal lineage through the women. And that's what I've explained to y'all before. It is not because we thought the women was better than us. No. In the culture, only the woman could guarantee that's her child. I am teaching you about our culture. Okay? Only the women could guarantee that the child is actually hers. With the man, it's always a speculation. There is always a chance that he is not the father of that child. You feel me? But the woman is always the one pushing it out. That's the proof. So from that aspect, all right, we knew that royalty could only be passed down through the mother because that there would never be a mistake. That's why when the Pale people came, the invaders came, all right, and even some of the Moors, when they came here, they slept with our women because that's how they were able to tie themselves into our royal bloodlines. Okay? It was only after Columbus' arrival that the family structure was changed drastically. Of course, changed to a patriarchal system, which we have today, and we know exactly what happened when men are running things. Okay? Or at least the men with that type of mindset. The Caciques. The Cacique live in a rectangular hut called Canayes, located in the center of the village, facing the Bate. It's believed that the size of the Taino settlements ranged from single families to groups of 3,000 people. The chieftains carried boldly carved scepters and daggers of polished stone as symbols of their authority. Caciques were also polygamous. Like I told people, we had a polygamous society as well. And a lot of people cannot come into the grasp of that because a man just want to sleep with more than one woman. No, that was part of our culture. but it wasn't what people want to make it today. Oh, you know what? I just want an excuse to sleep around. No, it wasn't that way. It was well structured, it was well organized, it was respected, it was part of the culture, and there was no jealousy. No woman was talking about, oh, well, you know what? She had you last night. I gotta have you tonight. Where you was at? Yo, you know what I'm saying? No, it was nothing like that. All right? It was nothing like that. Oh, I know where you was at because I sent a pigeon and the pigeon came back with a note and tell me you was by Shorty house. You know what I'm saying? No, we didn't. It was nothing like that. It was a structured, organized situation. Okay, and formed political alliances by marrying women from other kingdoms. So the Kasich would marry other women of royalty so that they could join the kingdoms together. Yes, that was part of our society because, all right, royalty was passed through the woman. And a lot of times the men would take the surnames of the women. That's why when I do people's dossiers, I put their lineage through the mothers and not the fathers. All right, so I'm letting you know this is not a game for me. I do this for real. Okay. In addition, Kasichs functioned as spiritual leaders who contacted the supernatural through hallucinogenic, hallucinogenic, pardon me if I'm not pronouncing that right, hallucinogenic trances and ensure the well-being of the community. In other words, they used sometimes what you call I know ayahuasca is one of them, but they use sometimes you know, certain plants, okay, or through hallucination to contact or go into the supernatural world. And they did it naturally. But sometimes when they couldn't, some people couldn't do it naturally, they use certain plants. Okay. And ayahuasca was one of them. But the most safest way to do it is do it naturally. And a lot of those shamans and Kasichs, they had that ability to step into the supernatural world. All right. Through what's called trances. All right. Kasichs also acted as the main intermediaries between people and the supernatural realm. So a lot of times, if people wanted to make contact into a higher realm, the Kasich would be the medium, and that's where the pale people or the people who came into our land, not just the pale people, but the people who gave us the Bible. That's where they came up with the concept of having one man. Okay, to, in other words, they gave us Jesus, saying that the only way to get to the Father is through the Son, because they saw that in our culture. So everything is mirrored from what we had in our culture, okay? Because the Kasich was the mediator between the people and the supernatural realm. So if they wanted to make contact to the higher realm, they would go to the Kasich, and that's what they injected in their Bible. So I'm showing you the relationship as to how all that came into play. All right. Before ingesting such hallucinogenic, okay, there we go, mixtures, I knew I would have got it. Kasichs and shamans fasted and purged themselves with vomiting spatulas of wood and bone in order to consume the pure foods of the spirit. All right. So once again, a lot of times the culture, we have lost the culture, but we used a lot of natural herbs to step into the higher realms of mixtures. They still do it in South America, but of course you have, you know, people do it, you know, through the guidance of a shaman. All right, because trust me, when I take a trip one of these days, I'm definitely going to experience that. All right, but I mean, I could do it now, but I don't want to take the chance because I don't have the proper direction, and I don't have the proper technique, and I'm not trying to step into a spiritual world and harm myself. But with the guardian, with the direction and guidance of a shaman, I'm definitely going to do it one day. But they would fast, and then they would purge themselves, you know, and then they would go into that spiritual practice. Then they inhaled their concussions from small vessels and trays using delicately carved snuffers of wood and bone. All right. So I just wanted to share that bits of information with you guys. All that stuff is in the link below. We are also going to go into another article. Here we are. And the Taino influence on the Jamaica folk tradition. All right. There's a lot of times, man, people got to realize, you know, what was done to our people with the lies. Okay, the lies is real. Believe that, it's real. Okay, the lies are real. Taino influence on Jamaica folk traditions. And look what you see who they're showing as a Taino. Look at the complexion of the sister. Dark skin. You feel me? All right. Who are the Tainos? The earliest inhabitants of Jamaica were the Tainos. You hear that? Not Africans. Okay, not Africans. So for all my Jamaican brothers and sisters who keep thinking y'all from Africa, they lied to y'all, okay? The earliest inhabitants of Jamaica were the Tainos, who settled the island about 650 AD. They populated the Greater Antilles, the Bahamian archipelago, and possibly the northern Lesser Antilles. Over the years, the Tainos have been mistaken as the Arawaks of South America. However, like the Kalinago, my people, formerly Carib, they spoke an Arawakan language. The indigenous population once numbered in the thousands with dense villages across Jamaica. The Tainos were the first people in the New World to meet Spaniards, and this ultimately led to their rapid demise. Today, some Jamaicans view the Tainos as just symbols on our coat of arms, or consider their legacy as limited to bami and hammocks. So my question, I tell people, okay, look at your coat of arms. They are showing you who you are. But once again, a lot of people just think that, you know what, that is just symbols. But people are so blind, they cannot see. All right. The Tainos, however, have innovated, contributed, and influenced so many things we take for granted, such as the thatch roof and the pitch style roof built to withstand hurricanes. Other technologies, innovations include canoes, fishing techniques, mound farming, predecessor to the cassava and yam hills, cassava processing, food coloring, and preservations on preservatives. The main objective of the Taino Day, May 5th, 2010, is to increase awareness of the first Jamaicans. You hear that? The first Jamaicans and their rich culture. The focus this year is highlighting the Taino influence on Jamaica folk tradition. Folk traditions are not limited to accepted beliefs and stories. It encompasses the things that people believe, elements of worldview practices, do, dance, music, rituals. No technological skills, food processing, medicine, make art, craft, architecture, and say proverbs, legends, stories. This article, however, will just look at Taino place names, attitudes to indigenous material culture, and their contributions to folk belief, medicine, musical instruments, and legends. What's in a name? Your name, or what you choose to be called, is an important part of your identity. Once again, my brothers and sisters, here we speak about identity. So if you are carrying the name of the slave master, you have lost your identity. Okay? You have lost your identity. You should identify yourself with a title that reflects who you are. Okay? And you have every right to self-identify. You feel me? Okay? I'm going to read that again. What's in a name? Your name, or what you choose to be called, is an important part of your identity. Thus, one of the Taino legacies is their role in naming of the island. We have been taught that Zaimaka was the Taino name given to the island, meaning land abounding with springs, which later evolved into Jamaica. But you see, it was called Zaimaka. Okay, Zaimaka, land of wood and water. In Columbus' journal, the island is, however, referred to as Yamai. B.W. Higman and B.J. Hudson have suggested that the CA in Jamaica is a locative suffix typical of Amerindian languages. You hear that? Of Amerindian languages. Thus, Jamaica meant the place or location where the Jamai or the Yamai people lived. All right? Today, Laquiani or Laquania, a derivation of iguana, and Kunabo, a veil, the Taino word for soursop, are known indigenous place names. The Taino have indirectly influenced other place names such as Arawak Cave and Rio Bueno, Trilani, and K6 Ridge, Retreat, St. Anne. The term Indian, whether denoting American, Amerindian, or East Indian, is a feature in our language and traditions. You hear that? The term Indian, whether denoting Amerindian or East Indian, is a feature in our language and traditions. So when people are lying to you and tell you, well, we were called Indians because we came from India, no. And I did say earlier that, you know, before 1492, we may not go back to be call ourselves Indian, but guess what? They did say that the term Indian, whether denoting Amerindian or East Indian, is a feature in our language and tradition. So there may have been some type of correlation. So if I was wrong on that information, I stand to be corrected. All right. Those reflecting our Taino heritage includes Indian Coney, Indian good tree, silk cotton tree, and Indian yampi. In the Westmoreland, there are 3 caves with the nickname of Indian Head Cave or Indian Hole Cave. The Drummond Cave, New Mountain Cave, and the West Cliff Cave apparently got this name due to the presence of the Taino burials and or rock art such as petroglyph, rock carvings, and or pictographs, rock paintings. The name Image Cave has also 2 Taino influence of Jamaican folks tradition. Leslie Gale Atkinson, May 2010. Being associated with the caves where 2 wooden artifacts or rock art have been discovered, such as in the Carpenter's Mountain, Manchester 1792, and Aboki, St. Anne 1992. Caves, duppies, shrines, and afterlife. Many Jamaicans have deep-seated fear of caves. The darkness and the journeying into the unknown has led to the global perception of them as portals to the underworld. From the dawning of prehistoric man has used supernatural elements to explain the mysteries of the cave. For the Taino, caves were places of dwelling, burials, and repositories. But most importantly, they had mythological and religious connotations. The Taino believed that mankind originated from caves. In their creation story, the first people continued to live in caves, and each night someone was to stand watch at the cave entrance. This task was given to a man named Mako Koyel. One day, he was late returning to his duties, and as such, the sun carried him off for his lack of vigilance. The people closed the entrance against him, and he was turned to stone near the entrance of the cave. Penny, 1999, page 5 to 6. So you see, in every culture, here you go. You are hearing about a man that was turned into stone, and now in their Bible, they're telling you Lot's wife was turned into salt. You feel me? And what is stone? Stone is also crystallized salt sometimes. So a lot of times you see the stories of the Bible where it's taken from. It's taken from a lot of other cultures, things that already happened in the past. So that's where it is easy to predict things, okay? And tell you what it's prophecy. Yes, it could have been prophecy, but not prophecy of your people, or it is prophecy of another culture, and they changed names and they changed locations. All right. This belief is reflective in Taino reference for caves, and the location of rock art at the entrance of the caves may have been in reference to the creation story. Patrick Brown, 1756, recorded the fear that the enslaved Africans had towards caves, particularly those with Taino rock art and burials. This seems to have transcended in time, as today you can find similar attitudes towards Taino material culture, which are believed to be associated with Obia. Okay? Obia is kind of something like voodoo, kind of. Okay? An example is the Aboki Zemes that were first discovered in the 1940s, returned to the cave, and then rediscovered in 1972 and kept for 20 years before being acquired by the Jamaican National Heritage Trust. Sundays and Gray, 2006, page 188. At Chauncey Hall, St. Andrew, the skull from a Taino burial was crushed due to the fear of the working of Obia. One body, Susan, a Taino petroglyph rock carving at Rock Spring, St. Mary, provides an interesting example of how Taino material culture has been woven into Jamaican folklore. One body, Susan, is one of our oldest known rock art sites. It was recorded in 1820, and it is also known as the Dry Land, Image Cave, and Man Cave. The petroglyph is called One Body Susan, as she has only one breast. This is derived from the law of long. And remember, like I told y'all before, law, L-O-R-E, was the spoken word. Okay, so we had, our culture was a spoken word. I have showed you guys on many occasions the meaning of law, L-O-R-E. It was traditions that was passed down through oral. Okay, that was passed down orally. So that's law. That's an actual word. Lang Body Susan, who is regarded as a duppy. Duppy may mean Jambi or, stuff like that. If somebody know what a Jambi is, like a male version of a witch sometimes, or it could be a female as well, that terrorizes children, also identifiable as the old hage or hag. All right. Now, my grandmother always used to tell us stories about Duppy. Well, we didn't call him Duppy. We call him Lugawu. Okay, Lugawu was a Creole word, all right, an indigenous word that we use. Jamaicans may have said Duppy, but we say Lugawu, all right, which kind of like almost like an evil spirit, kind of. So that's what we used, all right, Lugawu. According to Martha Warren Beckwith, Long Bobby Susan is characterized by breasts which touch the ground and which she throws over her shoulders when attacked. 1929, page 99. Damn, that's a long breast. Arna Brober has even written a short story on One Body Susan, Broder, 1989, page 52 to 53. This rock art site is also special to Akan, Yoruba, and Dakara priests and priestess who treat the image and the cave as a shrine. Honor, Brother, Personal Communication, 2010. This veneration for indigenous rock art sites is not unique to Jamaica, as in Haiti, these sites are perceived as source of healing and incorporated into pilgrimages that take place in the summer. Bevo Dominique, 2009, page 85 to 86. While in Puerto Rico, the rock art site Cueva Lociro is used for local godparent ceremonies. Michelle H. Hayward, Personal Communication, 2010. Taino influence of the Jamaica folk traditions, Leslie Gale Atkin, May 2010. All right. Now, I wonder, let me see if how far we gotta go. I'm gonna go to the next article. All right. I just wanted to introduce you guys to that. The link is below, so you could definitely continue to read it. All right. So let me just read one more paragraph. All right. Or maybe, who knows? In the New World, indigenous peoples commonly believed that the souls of the dead took the form of animals and moved freely among the living in the night. All right, you hear that? In the New World, the indigenous peoples commonly believe, like I always tell y'all before, there's no such thing as death. All right, when someone pass on, all right, and the soul or move on or whatever, they normally come back sometimes into the host of animals. All right, so that was part of the belief in our culture. and move freely among the living in the night. The bat and the owl were very important symbols in Taino mythology and death. To the Taino, the bat represented the opias, fruit-eating bats such as Artibios, um, Jamacinces, love dining on guavas, which is also the favorite food of the Taino spirits of the dead. I used to love guavas. Actually, we had 3 guava trees in the back of our yard. Bats are also perceived as death images in the folklore. Another example is birds, which are viewed as spirit beings, the natural avatars of shamans, able to break the bonds of earth and fly up to the spirit realm. Saunders 2005, page 31. So that's why for me, I have to come back into nature, because I want to get back into my meditation, and I want to tap into more of my spiritual, attributes, because my ancestors came to me in a vision and gave me the name Flying Eagle. So I definitely want to start tapping into that realm, and I believe I can, and I will. Amongst Jamaican folk tradition, the owl symbolizes death. For instance, if an owl cries in the night near your house, it means death. Barrett, 1976, page 41. The Taino had a similar belief, as the owl was considered the divine bird of the Kayoba, heaven or the underworld. All right, like I told y'all before, heaven or the underworld. Heaven is the underworld. We right here. All right, there's an underworld, and this is considered the underworld that people don't believe. They were terrified of the owl's nocturnal call because they believed the bird was the herald of the Lord of Kayoba, and it was delivering the message that a human life was about to end. Aaron, 1988, page 23 to 24, cited or cited in Garcia Arevalo, 1997, page 122. This is interesting. Look, I'm just talking myself into reading more. It's all right. I'm having fun. The holy tree, Indian savin tree, and other cure-alls. The Taino contribution to folk medicine should not be overlooked nor underestimated. Payne, Jackson, and Allen, 2004, page 126. A number of these medicinal plants were discovered and used by the Taino. Authors such as Gonzalo Fernandez de Aviado, 1851 to 1855, and Henry Baham, 1794, recorded Taino uses of herbs, which may have been incorporated in the enslaved Africans, incorporated into the enslaved African medical practices. You hear that? The Taino uses herbs which may have been incorporated in. In other words, they took it and they put it in the enslaved African medicinal practices. But I guarantee you, some people might just say, you know what? Oh, it came from Africa. No. The African medicinal practices, the Taino herbs was incorporated into theirs. So it is the origin is actually Taino. The flower, and once again, I am not going in detail or explaining those things to discredit our African cousins. All right. No, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just putting things in perspective. All right. Because too many times we are being discredited. We are not getting the credit for what's ours. And they always have to attribute it to some other culture. It's like we never had no culture. You know what I'm saying? So no, I have to speak the truth on what it is. All right. The flower of the legume or the legnum verte is also national flower, is our national flower. But to the Taino, Gayokan, as they called it, was the holy tree. You hear that? How ironic that you have in the Bible of the tree of life. But yet still in the Taino culture, all right, the Gayokan, as they call it, was the holy tree. So I am showing you the parallel. All right. I'm not saying that's where they got it from, but I'm just letting you know that all these things existed before the Bible. Okay? Before the Bible. Trees on the whole were important as they believed that at night trees received messages from the gods. And this is probably why many Taino zemis are made from wood. And that's why they had to take us out of nature, because we communicated with trees. And people think I'm crazy when I tell them those things. When I go listen to a tree and hear what the tree has to say. But I know what I'm doing. I'm connecting back to my spiritual roots. Gaia Khan was magical and sacred, not only as a source material for their religious paraphernalia, but due to its medicinal properties. I guess that kind of sounds like what you call marijuana, huh? A lignum vitae decoction was used by the Taino as a remedy for yaya, for syphilis. So for those of you who got syphilis out there, there's a remedy for that. Like I said, there's a cure, in a remedy in nature for everything, okay? Which was later adopted by Europeans. All right, that's what they do. Okay, take our culture, they put a patent on it, and they tell you, no, yo, you can't use it. If you use it without a license, you're gonna go to jail, you're gonna get arrested, you're gonna get sued. But all that stuff is ours. That's why I tell my people, let us go back to our indigenous practices, our indigenous ways. So therefore, when we use, okay, what's ours, you cannot get arrested. You could always beat that charge. But it's only when you step into the matrix, their world, you get penalized because you need a license in the matrix to operate. Brothers and sisters, man, I'm trying to show y'all how to win this, okay? In Jamaican folk tradition, it has been used to treat bruises and pain. Low, 1972, page 22. Arrowroot was also employed by the indigenous people to draw out poisons from snakes. Stings, from snake stings. Baham, 1970, 1794, page 7 and 235. When I was younger, we used to make arrowroot. As a matter of fact, here's a fact. When my mother birthed me, the first time she breastfed me, I didn't like breast milk. I actually beat her nipples, and every time she tried to breastfeed me, I was resisting her breast milk. So they had to raise me on arrowroot. Okay, so that was what I was raised on, arrowroot. Okay, and we had the plant, and we used to actually what we call grate. We used to grate the plant. When you say you grate something, it means like you refine it, like it's a whole whole food, and then you use either a grater, but now people have blenders, you know what I'm saying? But back in the days, we had what's called a grater, and we would grate the arrowroot, and then we would make the arrowroot milk, or the arrowroot juice would make the arrowroot tea. All right, so just giving you guys a little background on some of the culture, all right, that I grew up with. All right, stings and poison arrows. Taino influence of Jamaica folk traditions. Leslie Gale Atkin, May 2010. Arrowroot is said to be good for building up the stomach, all right, and diarrhea. I guess that's why I've always had a six-pack, because like I said, that's what I grew up on, all right? And no, I'm not boasting and bragging, but I'm just saying, like, I didn't even know that. Arrowroot is said to be good for building up the stomach. I didn't know that. And I've always had a strong core, and that's what my mother raised me on, and I still love it up to this day, all right? What it is, it's kind of like a yam, all right? That's what it kind of looks like in its raw form. It's in the ground, and then you would take it, you would clean it off, okay, peel the skin, and then you would put it in, and we would have this this machine that we made, all right, and it would grate the arrowroot in its raw form, and then it would become something like how would I call it? Damn, I'm trying to see what I could compare it to. Not rice, but it becomes fine, and then we would squeeze the juice out of it, and sometimes you could sell it. It comes like flour, okay, like flour, the flour that you cook with. That's what it looks like after you process it, and then you boil it in water, and it becomes this thick liquid, and it almost looks like paste. All right, so it depends on how thick you make it. You could make it like thick, or you could make it, a little watery. It depends on your taste. So that's just the process of the arrowroot. All right, the leaf of the cocoa. We had a few cocoa trees as well. Or chocolate is used as an anti-inflammatory drug in folk medicine. Payne, Jackson, and Allen 204. Among the Taino, the cocoa was very important to the Behike medicine men. The juice of the cocoa plant was believed to have resuscitation powers, even in death. All right. The Indian savan tree was used by the Taino to treat and soothe wounds. When parts of the tree are bruised, it produces a strong balsamic scent. Have you ever heard of that soursop leaf tea? Will settle your nerves. The soursop leaf is good for the treatment of nervous conditions. All right. So once again, yeah, we had like, let me see, I think we probably had like about 6 soursop trees. All right. And even right now, I mean, we literally have soursop leaves just falling, going to waste. And I was trying to get some up here, but you know, they, you know, the what you call the customs, all right, or what you call Homeland Security, they try to prevent people from bringing those things. And all those things is indigenous. They're not supposed to be preventing us from bringing our medicinal, you know, herbs, but you know how it is. The guanabo soursop was a popular fruit of the Taino, and we can be and it and can be used to treat high blood pressure, wounds, as antidote for poison. Payne Jackson and Allen 2004, 149, 158, 165. Guava seems to be the ultimate cure all, as it's said to be able to treat insect bites, ulcers, boils, colds, nausea, stomach aches, vomiting, hemorrhages, hemorrhage, heart ailment, and also a good and tonic. Payne Jackson and Allen 2004, page 149 to 167. Making a joyful noise. Folk musical instruments have been thought to reflect the African tradition. However, most of these instruments were made and used by our indigenous ancestors. Once again, I'm showing y'all the facts. They always associate or attribute our culture to Africans because they want us to make us think we are Africans. And I'm going to say it again. Folk musical instruments have been thought to reflect the African tradition. However, some of these instruments were made and used by our indigenous ancestors. This includes flutes made from hollow plants and trees such as wild cane and the trumpet tree. The Taino also played seashell trumpets, particularly that of the queen conch. The queen conch, we call it conch. And I actually have one right here. And I'll show you guys what it looks like one of these days. But I have a queen conch right now. All right. A feature in several Jamaican church bands is the tambourine that is indigenous to the Americas. To the Taino, this was called the maki or the makwe, and was made from the trumpet tree and covered with shells. This instrument, however, was only played by the cacique and was used during the sacred ariatos, which celebrated the ancestors. Maracas, commonly known as rattle, were used during the cahoba ritual and the medicinal ceremonies that are now a popular instrument among children. Mountain pride and other legends. Jamaica has a rich oral tradition. So once again, may I reiterate, if you cannot prove your ancestry through their paperwork because of paper genocide, we had a rich oral history. So if I'm telling you, my great-grandmother told me that's who I was, who the hell are you to tell me that's who I'm not? So that's why I tell you, don't hurt your head, okay? Don't hurt your head. Just step into who you are. You did. All right? Which was inherited from our African ancestors. All right? So once again, we did have in the Caribbean, African ancestors. I always tell people, when I speak of our culture, we do have both ancestors, but I tell people we are not Africans in America. We are Americans with some African ancestry because they did mix a lot of the people. So for me, I honor all my ancestors, all right? Whether they may have came from Africa, whether they have came from Europe, whether they have came from Asia, it doesn't matter where they came from. We are all indigenous to the entire earth, all right? And we all mixed. However, I am American with variations of other ancestry. So when I do my honors, I honor all my ancestors, all right? Oral tradition was also integral to the Taino society during their aritos, which consisted of music, dance, and ritual. They perform sounds retelling their histories and the origin and myths of their gods. Rose, 1992. In Jamaica, the telling of legends and folk tales are important elements of our folk culture. Mountain Pride, Martha Bray, The Golden Table, and The Lover Leap, and popular legends. Three of these tales are associated with the Taino, and the Martha Bay legend was even incorporated into the plot of the LTM Taino-Carib-Arawak Gold, 1992. In the interest of time, only the legend of Mountain Pride will be highlighted. Okay? My grandmother used to put us around the fire and tell us a lot of folk tale. So many stories, man. I could remember that so vividly. Mountain Pride was a beautiful Taino girl who was to wed her love, the Kasich. A chief priest who wanted her for himself murdered her love on their wedding day. Mountain Pride refused to give herself to the chief priest. As such, threw herself over a cliff, falling into her death. Where she fell, there soon grew a beautiful tree with a crown of magenta blossoms, representing the crown of feathers that Mountain Pride once wore. The tree still grows near the limestone cliffs in her memory. Today, as we celebrate Taino Day, it is hoped that fellow Jamaicans will join the Jamaica 5 Taino influence of Jamaica folk tradition. Leslie Gill Atkin, May 2010. National Heritage Trust is honoring the first Jamaicans. Our history as a people began long before the arrival of the Europeans. We should not remember the Taino as a lost culture, but as a people whose traditions we still embrace today in the 21st century. Leslie Gill Atkins is an archaeologist at the Jamaica National Heritage Trust and PhD candidate at the University of Florida. She is pursuing her PhD in anthropology, major archaeology. Works cited Baham H. 1794, Hotos Americanos, containing an account of the trees, shrubs, and other vegetable products of South America and the West Indies, and particularly the island Jamaica, Kingston, Alexander Ekman. All right, so they're just making references to all the people. All right, so that's what it is right now. So we kind of almost pretty much read everything. We are not going to go into the authors and stuff like that. That is also in the link below. All right. All right, Holito, Gaso. All right, you know what Gaso is, Gaso. All right, so just read a little bit about that. That was part 1. Now, if we go into the other Indigenous Jamaica, let us click on that. All right, that right there, I read a little bit of that, so it doesn't really say much. It's just talking about people, who came and was hiking and talking about a few things, all right, about different events that they were having, all right, in Jamaica. All right, so the link is below, and you guys could always check it out. All right, they're just talking about the rainforest and explaining things, some things, to you guys. And a lot of people who think that the Maroons are from Africa, no, the Maroons are not Africa. Okay, they just call them Maroons because they changed a lot of the names. They changed a lot of the names, all right, so that they could throw people off. Instead of saying they are the Tainos or the Arawaks, they call them the Maroons. But remember, they still have their own governments, all right, because they are the indigenous people of the land. So my brothers and sisters, please be aware of what's going on, all right. St. Lucia too, the same thing. The original people may have been considered the Arawak or the Caribs. All right. So we did this. We did okay, I've done that. Which one we did that already. So let me close that. We just did that one, and we're gonna go into which one? Now we're gonna go into this one right here. All right. We're gonna go into this one right here. So just giving you guys a little background on, what, when I was in school, in the Caribbean, they didn't call us American Indians. They said Amerindians. Okay, so I've always known that I was an Amerindian, which is pretty much they just joined the words anyway. So now it's separated, and they're saying American Indians. All right. So, but just definitely the Maroons are the Arawaks, okay, the original people. So they're always throwing people off with that, making you think it's Africans. All right. Now, the Chicago Archaeological Society explore the world of archaeology and history at our free monthly meetings. Wednesday, May 9th, 2018, Dominica or the Dominican Republic. All right. Discovering the hidden past of the Caribbean with Kadeen Harris. Dominica or the Dominican Republic. Both nations are in the Caribbean. And a lot of times, when I tell people I was born in Dominica, the first thing they start doing is speaking Spanish. Well, I'm not public. I was born in Dominica. All right. Dominica, the small island, the nature island of the Caribbean. So therefore, I speak a little Spanish, yes, but not because I'm from Dominican Republic. All right. We, a lot in the country, I grew up every summer, every so-called Christmas and every holiday, every chance that I got, I wanted to be in the country because I wanted to learn the local Creole, what we call patois. So for those of you who don't know, yes, I speak another language, okay? It's called patois, all right? Patois or Creole. Ma parle patois, ma parle Creole, all right? So people got to realize that Chief is, I don't just talk this. I live this life. All right. Both nations are in the Caribbean and both share the parallel but different histories. Okay. Let me see if I can bring that up some more for you guys. I want to make it big and bold. All right. Let me make sure that we have enough of that information here. Yes, we do. All right. Perfect. All righty. Okay. The class May 2018 speaker, Miss Kadeen, pardon me, Miss Kadeen Harris will cast a new light on Dominica, a region so close in the miles but distant in understanding. Miss Kadeen Harris is a current PhD candidate at Northwestern University in the Department of Anthropology. She will defend her dissertation that forthcoming summer. Trained in the Caribbean history and archaeology, Miss Harris has conducted research in Jamaica, Nevis, Dominica, and the Chesapeake Bay. See map below for Dominica location, and has taught both Northwestern and the School of Art Institute of Chicago. So the sister is well versed. All right, that's a picture of you know, some of the landscape in Dominica. You see how blue that water is? That's the water I learned to swim in. All right. Her virtual travel destination to Dominica, one of the Windward Isle, will encapsulate a time and place heretofore alien to the CSA. I guess that, whatever that stands for. Dubbed with the nature island, like I told y'all before, Dominica is dubbed or called the nature island of the Caribbean. So I was born in nature. That's just part of my innate nature. All right, that's where I came from. All right, dubbed the nature island for its soaring peaks and various microclimates. Dominica boasts a long and complex history that has only recently garnered attention from archaeologists. In her talk, Ms. Harris will give an overview of Dominica's archaeological past, starting with the island's first inhabitants, the Kalinago. Okay? The ending with focus on her latest research on the colonial period. She will also discuss findings from her research that explored the cessation of slavery in 1838 among Dominican laborers and subsequent generations. All right? So for those of you who don't know where the name Kalinago came from, my ancestors gave me that in a vision to represent, all right, my immediate ancestors from Dominica. And then one night they came to me in another vision and gave me flying eagle through a vision. All right. So my title came from my ancestors. Carib territory. Although immigrants into the Caribbean from South America shared common culture, attributes the new geography of the Caribbean allowed for the emergence of the cultural subsets. Now I'm going to read that again. It didn't say although immigrants into the Caribbean from Africa. It didn't say that. So when people speak and they speak from a place of ignorance, I totally ignore these people. All right. So once again, like I tell people, I'm not here to prove to anybody who you are or who you are not. I'm just showing you the history. I'm showing you the proof, and you do what you want with it. Okay? Nobody could convince me who I'm not or who I am. Although immigrants into the Caribbean from South America shared common cultural attributes, the new geography of the Caribbean allowed for the emergence of cultural subsets. Dominica was the name given to 289.8 square miles of land. Like I said, the country that I was birthed from is a very, very small island. All right, by Christopher Columbus when he landed on the island on November 3rd, 1493. On the northeastern side of the beautiful tropical rainforest island is 3,782.3 areas of land set aside known as the Carib territory. So the same thing that they have done right here in the mainland, they have what's called the reservations, is the same thing that they did for the Caribs. Okay, they put them in what's called the Carib territory. In other words, a Carib reserve. But ironically, the same thing that they did here on the mainland, they whitewashed the original Aborigines, American Indians, and they put natives. Is the same thing that they did in Dominica. All right. So all this was done throughout the Americas, but not mostly on the mainland and Dominica, and I think one or two other places that they do have reserves. All right. It is situated between two villages, Atkinson to the north and Cassie Bruce to the south. I have a lot of cousins that live in Cassie Bruce. It is the home of approximately 2,208 Kalinago Caribs, the remaining survivors of the first inhabitants of the island. All right. The people called the island Waiti Kubuli, like I told y'all before, and it meant tall is her body. And they used to wage war on the Kalinago Carib people, but due to their courage and bravery, they survived. So I come from a lineage of people who are brave. Okay, that's in my blood. In 1763, the British gained full control of Dominica. The Kalinagos were given 232 acres of mountainous and rocky shoreline in Salabir, Dominica. In 1903, the amount of land was expanded to 3,700 acres and was called the Carib Reserve. In addition, the Carib colonized. The Kalinagos before the arrival of Columbus. Before the arrival of Christopher Columbus, the Kalinagos, open bracket, Caribs, close brackets, were self-reliant people. Okay? We were a self-reliant people. The Kalinagos survived mainly by fishing, hunting, and farming. They were skilled craft people and made canoes hewn from the huge trees and dug out, which were used to travel to and from the neighboring islands. The Caribs also wove baskets and were famous for their herbal medicine. They spoke their own language and worshiped spirits of their ancestors. So like I tell people, this is our culture. We worship the spirits of our ancestors because they came before us and we worship them and ask them for guidance. That's why when I showed you in the video earlier, when you look at the etymology of the word God, what does it mean? The original meaning of the word God meant to evoke, to pour a libation. So they took our culture and put it in one word and gave you their God to worship, not knowing that when you say God, you're supposed to be using God to invoke the spirit of our ancestors. So you are using God in the wrong context. That's why their God is not working for you. Okay? Their God is not working for you, brothers and sisters, because you are using it in the wrong context. All right? We worship the spirits of our ancestors. More than 1,500 years ago, the Arawak people of South America began to migrate northwards, eventually navigating the Orinoco River and exploring what is now the Caribbean and the Antilles. This migration would continue for hundreds of years until there was a presence of Arawaks on most Caribbean islands, including Dominica. So even St. Lucia was Arawaks, okay? Antigua was Arawaks. What they call Guadeloupe was Arawaks. Although the tribes descended from the Arawak went under different names like Lokono, Lokayan, Carib, or Shiboni, the Taino, which stood for the good people in Arawak, was the largest indigenous group under the umbrella of Arawak Indians and would be the first group of indigenous Indians to make contact with the settlers. When Columbus landed on what is now Dominican Republic in 1492, there was a vibrant and flourishing civilization already present on the island of Haiti. This was the Taino name for the Columbus renamed Hispaniola. The Taino had dark brown skin, again, here we go, similar to that of their distant South American relatives, and were average in stature with dark flowing coarse hair, large slightly oblique eyes. Though modern depictions of Taino Indians at the time of Columbus' arrival are of savage Indians parading around naked, the Taino were, in fact, highly skilled at weaving cotton and clothing. Clothing or lack thereof was used as an identifier of class and rank within the society. Men generally went naked or wore a loincloth, or I read that before in another part of it. All right, so now you see, now they're showing these people as, you know, South American Arawak tribe. Now, I'm not saying that they are not from South America. I'm not saying that they are not a tribe, but you see how the faces changed? The faces changed. So now they're saying that this is the depiction, when in actuality, those people don't look dark brown to me. So you have to ask yourself, what happened? What transpired? Okay? What transpired? Why aren't they showing what the original people look like? So, you know, you have to ask yourself those questions, right? The Taino Indians live in organized, okay, we read that already from the other excerpt. So we don't have to read that the same thing again, the Kasich. Okay, so that's pretty much going over the same thing that we just read. All right. To some extent, Dominica natural rugged geography. So we're gonna read here now. All right, because we read that first part before. Now, to some extent, Dominica natural rugged geography protected the Kalanagos from the European invaders and their disease-carrying fellow travelers, as it may have held the Caribs at bay. Nevertheless, the fate of the Dominican Kalanagos Indians was sealed on that day in 1492, when the Taino fellow Americans first encountered Christopher Columbus. For more about the peoples of the Caribbean, open that link right here, okay? And this is, or better still, come to Miss K. Dean Harris virtual journey to Dominica. So I have that link below. All right, so you could click on that if you want other about peoples of the Caribbean. You could open that link below, and it will give you some information. All right, it's all in the link below. Study the culture, learn the culture. All right, brothers and sisters, because you may learn some things that you probably didn't know. All right, so we are going to go to the next slide. It's a lot of reading, but I'm not sure if I'm going to read everything. However, I will make an attempt to read as much as I can. All right. Now, history of the Taino Indians, December 4th. It doesn't say a year, but let us go. And also that link is below. Introduction. Taino Indians, a subgroup of the Arawakan Indians, a group of American Indians in northeastern South America. All right. Once again, Indians, Arawakan Indians, a group of American Indians. It doesn't say a group of Africans. All right. American Indians in northeastern South America inhabited the Greater Antilles, comprising Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, Haiti, and Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico, in the Caribbean Sea at the time when Christopher Columbus arrived to the New World. The Taino culture impressed both the Spaniards, who observed it, as well as modern sociologists. The report addresses the historical origin, cultural, religious myths, and spiritual beliefs, and the tribe structure of the Cacique Aquebana. All righty. Upon arrival, let me see if I can make this a little bigger for you guys. Yes, I can. I just did. All right. Upon arrival of the Spaniard settlers, Father Payne attempted to convert the Indian population to what? Christianity. Once again, brothers and sisters, before 1492, we were not Christians. All right. Our people were not Christians. Upon arrival of the Spaniard settlers, Father Payne attempted to convert, that's why they call them converts, the Indian population to Christianity. And the Indians were gradually exterminated until the African slaves arrived from Africa. All right. The Arawaks were the original Indians who came from South America. The Arawaks were of great influence on the Tainos. The settlements in the Antilles were in no sequential order. The report is based on finding by archaeologists during several investigations of the remains and artifacts from the Taino Indians found in ceremonial parks. All right. Pre-Taino people, Caribbean 200 to 1200 AD. Pre-Taino is not an ethnic name, but merely a general label for a relative time period. Its usage varies. Here, for simplification, it includes all the ceramic age prior to the Taino period, but elsewhere it might refer to only a short period immediately before the Taino development. The distant migration between when pottery markers traveled down the Orinoco River in present Venezuela and out of the Caribbean islands, populating islands from Trinidad to Puerto Rico between 500 BC and 200 BC. Islands were not necessarily settled in sequential order. The earliest Virgin Islands ceramic age dates so far known are close to AD 200. The ceramic tradition that arrived in the islands with this migration is called the Saladoid series by archaeologists. It endured for several centuries until about AD 600 to 700 in the Virgin Islands. From approximately AD 600 to 1200, archaeological cultures of the Virgin Islands were not yet well known. There are changes in pottery, other artifacts, food remains, and settlements, locations, but the causes and dates of these transitions are still largely undefined. Culture may have gradually evolved from its preceding state, or it possibly received influences from new migrants from South America, initiating cultural changes. A new pottery tradition is called Osteonoid, which persists into the Taino period. Most prehistorians see in these later centuries the beginning of characteristic Taino cultural traits, at least in the Taino heartland area of Puerto Rico and Hispaniola, now occupied by the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Archaeological similarities indicate that the Virgin Islands shared a culture or ethnic identity with eastern Puerto Rico and perhaps had connections to the Leeward Islands. It is likely that trade and other interactions brought various peoples into contact with one another across longer distances throughout the region as well. So in the Caribbean, you also have a portion of islands that is called the Leeward Islands. more so towards Trinidad and Jamaica, and then towards Dominica, you have St. Vincent, Guyana, not Guyana, Antigua, Dominica, Martinique, Guadeloupe, St. Vincent. Those are more geared towards the Windward Islands. All right. So just to give you a little bit of geographical history on that. Okay. El Bata, Plaza Sports of Arena, the Arawak overview. Without having to go into prehistoric time, we can safely say that the first inhabitants of the Antilles were the Arawaks. Just prior to 1000 AD, they were expelled from the Lesser Antilles by the Caribs. My apologies to my brothers and sisters. What our ancestors did to each other. A people originating like them, all right? Because like I said, we were literally the same people. It's like the Bloods and the Crips, all right, fighting each other. So that was like the Caribs and the Arawaks, all right? From the lower Orinoco River, short copper colored with straight black hair. You hear that? Once again, what? Short copper colored. So don't matter where you go, all the references that I show you, we are calling we are being called the copper races. All right. So for those of you who have to go to work, I know it's getting late, so I get it. All right. I totally get it. So you guys can come back and check it out. All right. But once again, I am showing y'all in all the references that I go, they are always showing the complexion of the people. So because we were called the copper people, they just took out the copper and started calling us colored. All right. But short copper colored with straight black hair. The Arawaks, due to their early arrival in the region, were by the time of Columbus arrival peaceful and sedentary. So my thing is this: if all the people were colored and dark, what happened? Right? What happened? You see, now they're showing us all this pale, washed out people and calling them the original people. And that's why I do what I do, because I want our people to realize the lie that was told, and we have to step up into our place to literally regain our birthright. Okay, it's imperative that you grasp your story and not his story. Okay, it is important. Living on an agriculture, hunting and fishing, they grew a soft variety of corn and sweet potatoes. Yes, corn and sweet potatoes is indigenous to the Americas. They also knew how to make cassava bread using an elaborate process to leach out the poisonous juice of this root. All right, we had another process in Dominica that we used to make our cassava. All right, when we did our cassava, we did the same process, but we didn't use the leech to suck out the poisonous juice. We used another method. All right. They hunted little mammals or lizards with sticks and birds with stones. They had domesticated breed of dogs, which they used for the hunting and occasionally as food. Since the sea provided them with a great bounty, they developed much more efficient ways of fishing and navigating. On the island, favoring side navigation on long sea-faring expeditions as the Polynesians did in the Pacific Ocean. They lived in round dwellings. They're all rectangular houses with porches reserved for dignitaries. You hear that? Before the colonization of our people, we had all these sophisticated homes with porches. All right, we had dignitaries, man. But yet still they're telling us we came on slave ships from Africa, right? In that blank. The art of weaving was highly developed, and the cotton hammock in which they slept was one of the few long-lasting contributions they made to the European culture. You hear that? To the European culture. But now I guarantee you, some European have patented the hammock, saying that it's theirs, right? But no, it came from our people. They made good baskets and agricultural tools, and sometimes sculptured wooden seats. Their pottery was extremely refined and of real artistic value, even though they ignored the potter's wheel, while all pre-Columbian American Indians. Their clothing was limited to short skirts for women. The cut, color, and way of wrapping them indicated their social class and age. Men and women wore ornaments, usually composed of strips of cotton, tied up above their knees and around their upper arms. At their feast, they danced to the sound of flutes and drums. They played a game. They played a game somewhat similar to soccer. All right, except that the raw rubber ball had to be tossed with the head, shoulder, elbow, or more professionally by the knee. Their minstrels, called sambas, sang comical or sad stories of war and or peace times. All right, so we did have a sport similar to what's called soccer. All right, so just to show you where all these things originated, the Arawaks were animist, which means that they believed in the inner connection of the two worlds, the visible and the invisible one. All right, in other words, the physical and the spiritual that has always been acknowledged in our culture, and in the existence and survival of the soul with the environment, trees, and rivers. So you see, a lot of the culture, like I told y'all before, we believed in our culture that our ancestors dwelled in the trees. Our ancestors were the trees, because that's where the souls went back to. And hence, they cut a lot of our trees. Another reason why they keep us away from the trees and put us in cities, in concrete jungles. So my brothers and sisters, you see why I'm calling you back to the land. All right? Let us reconnect. That's where we are at our strongest. That's where we vibrate at our highest. All right? That's where we will be more spiritually inclined. They adored the sun, the moon, the stars, and the springs. The Botios, their respected priests and medicine men, are according to Metro, the ancestors of present-day Hades, doctors Papier, or Dr. Filius. The Arawaks believed in eternal life for the virtuous. In Hispaniola, they situated their heaven in a remote part of the island, where the elected would go to rest and eat the delicious Haitian apricot. Very little is known about their political organization. Substantial kingdoms existed, and their kings, the Caciques, exerted absolute power on their subjects. All right? So you see, we have always had those systems. We had kings, and we had, so the people of the kings were the subjects. All right? So this is nothing new. Or what they're talking right now, the United States call you subjects, and you're subjects, to be a citizen of the United States, you have to be born or naturalized or be subjected. All that stuff came from us. All right. Once again, they have adopted our culture, our political systems. All right. The quiet and peaceful Arawaks have totally disappeared from the face of the earth. That's what they say. But we are the descendants of said people. All right. This was accomplished in a very short time after the arrival of the Europeans. Yes, they made us extinct on paper, but trust me, we are still here. Aside from the animals imported by Europeans, in particular the pigs, that were left free to roam and devastate the tuberous crop of the Arawaks, many were killed in the defensive wars they undertook to preserve their freedom. Now, here's something about the pig and the pork. All right. Our people, our ancestors, they call the pig evil. I'm going to tell you why they call the pig evil. And of course, they injected that in the Bible. I'm showing y'all exactly what's taking place here. Our ancestors called the pig evil because the pigs were brought into the Americas. I'm talking about in millions, all right, to destroy the land, to roam the land, devastate the crops, because that's what pigs do. So our ancestors cursed the pigs, okay? Our ancestors cursed the pigs. So that's why I don't eat pork. I don't eat pork because the Bible said so. No. I don't eat pork because our ancestors cursed it, okay? Because the pigs were brought in millions to ruin and damage our land, damage our crops. And that's why I don't eat pig, because my ancestors cursed it. So you see, I know the true history behind that. Not because the Bible said so. The Bible stole that in from our culture. And talk about Jesus put the demons in the pig, and all of a sudden the demons got into the pigs and they ran over this precipice. No. Okay? No. That's an allegory. All right? And that's why I don't eat pig meat. You did. Because my ancestors cursed it. All right? Others, after being ruthlessly enslaved and submitted to a meager diet of cassava and sweet potatoes, died from malnutrition and overwork in the mines or plantations. Finally, the rest of them died after contracting European diseases from which they were not immune. Their disappearance was so swift and the need for cheap and able labor was so great that 30 years after Columbus landing, the massive deportation of Africans had started. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of these people, they live in us, okay? That's a fact. The story of the Caribs, Caribbean, 1504. Who were those Indians from the Lesser Antilles? The ferocious ones with the infamous appetite for barbecued human flesh. Well, you know what? I'm not gonna defer from that. Those are my ancestors, all right? I am a Carib. I've never eaten human flesh, but I am a Carib. However, they certainly created a greater impact on the European imagination than the so-called Arawaks. The Caribbean was named after them, as was the word cannibal, and by anagram, Shakespeare's Caliban, that abhorred slave, which any print of goodness wilt not take, being capable of all ill. Who were the Caribs? They were first entered the picture as a rumor that Columbus heard from the Taino. All the people I have met here, he entered in his diary, have said that they are greatly afraid of the Caniba or the Canima. Actually, we cannot know what Columbus was told because he had a remarkable ability for seeing what he wanted to see and hearing what he wanted to hear. And after all, the Caniba could be nothing else than the people of the Creek Can, the Great Can, who must be very close by. Ovidio E. Valdez suggested that the word meant brave in Taino language. As much as a century later, Carib was still sometimes used as an adjective to describe different tribes. Thus, in 1620, Vasquez de Espinaza could say the island of Grenada is strictly peopled with Carib Indians called Kamayayas or Kamahayas. All right, so Grenada, again, the Caribs, which means lightning from the heaven, which they are brave and warlike. By then, somehow Columbus, Caniba were being called Carib. The English used Caribbees, Cheribs, the Cheribs. All right. Now let me ask you a question. Didn't they have cherubs or in the Bible? You see, again, I'm showing you the connection. Didn't they call the angels or the people who was guarding the garden? Didn't they call them the cherubs? If I'm not mistaken. Now you know what? I wanna prove myself wrong on this because that just kind of like sparked something in me. All right, in the Bible. In the Bible. Because it kind of, they said cherub, but you see, kind of like, check this out. The two cherubim placed by God at the entrance of the paradise in Genesis, cherub. All right, cherub or cherub, whatever that whichever way you want to pronounce that, right? But let us go back to this right here. What is the difference? They just changed the name. They just changed the I and put a U. All right. and they were guarding, and that's what the Caribs did. They guarded the land. They guarded the Garden of Eden. They guarded the Americas, because that was the portal from coming from the Caribbean. And the sheriffs or the Caribs were the fierce warlike warriors that prevented them from coming into the mainland as early as they would have, okay, or as late as they would have, because they didn't come into the mainland until the 1600s. That is because the Caribs were fighting them off. So again, I'm just putting two and two together. I mean, I'm just saying that's just what I'm getting. I could be wrong, but I'm just saying all that stuff is probably injected into the Bible. All right. The French use Caribbees, and for those on the mainland, Calibes. Father Raymond Britton, who lived among the Indians in Dominica from 1641 to 1655, said, however, that the men called themselves Kalinago, and the women called themselves Kalipunam. Today, among anthropologists, the favorite name is Kalina, but those still living in St. Vincent call themselves Garifuna. All right, and of course, they're telling them, the Garifunas, that they are Africans. But man, if they want to believe that, that's on them. But if the linguists have clouded the issue of Arawaks with their palaver about Arawakan language speakers, they have also demystified the vulgar ideas about the Carib race, since we are told these Caribs spoke a dialect of Arawakan language family. In other words, linguistically, the Caribs were really Arawaks, and ironically, according to the linguist Douglas Taylor, the various but similar words referring to Carib may go back to an ancestral Kaniripuna, meaningful in Arawak, but not, I think, in Caribbean. Either way, such was the impression created by the Lesser Antilleans that the Spanish and other Europeans took the matter of their eating humans quite seriously. For instance, the story was spread in the 16th century that some Dominican Caribs, after eating a Spanish friar, all fell ill. Thereafter, the Spanish, whenever they stopped off the Carib Islands, made sure to dress their sailors in sackcloth just in case. The Caribs, it was thought, found Spanish to be stringy and grisly, as opposed to the French, who were rather delicious, and the Dutch, who tended to be fairly tasteless. Yo, that's funny. Damn, my ancestors wasn't playing, huh? For all its seeming detail, the Spanish knowledge of culinary habits was actually negligible, far more so than that of the French. It is true that the Kalina and the Lokono raided each other's settlements for captives or revenge, and there was practiced by both tribes some degree of ritual cannibalism. In the 17th century account of Adrienne van Berkel, who lived with Lokono in Bernice, and the 16th century account of Louisa Navarrete, who was a Kalina slave in Dominica. Both tribes, after successful raids, killed one or two male captives in victory ritual and put pieces of their flesh into the pot. An arm or a leg was preserved to remind them of their hatred of the enemy. That was more or less the extent of it. All right. All right, so I'm going to skip a few of this reading right here and do a little bit of course, the link is below, so you could read all that stuff yourself. I'm just giving you the information. All right. The Tainos in the Greater Antilles, Caribbean, AD 1200 to 1500. The dates of this period are widely used, generally estimates, because VI sites have not been sufficiently dated to provide more specific information. Much information about the Tainos comes from Spanish accounts, so therefore they could tell us any damn thing. Archaeologists believe it is valid to extrapolate that information back into the late prehistoric times for sites that have similar artifacts. Some archaeological sites of the Virgin Islands have typical Taino traits, such as the stone-lined ball court at Salt River on St. Croix. Artifacts from other sites also indicate that these islands were included in the Taino realm, at least for some period. The Tainos may have abandoned the VI, which is the Virgin Islands, before 1493. However, due to the advancing island Caribs. All right. That you could read some more. All right, let us read a little bit about the Igneris Indians. The first inhabitants of the area were presumably the Igneris Indians who come from South America. Once again, you're not hearing anything about we came from Africa. Okay, they must have settled here at about the beginning of the Christian era. Near the 3rd century, slowly the Taino Indians occupied and shared the place acquired by the Igneris. The Tainos, at approximately 800 years before the discovery of Puerto Rico, had constructed the batallas, or ceremonial parks. And you talk 800 years before the discovery of Puerto Rico. Here, they used this to celebrate their aritos, or traditional festivities, their sports, and other important events. There is evidence that they constructed structures, bohíos, in ceremonial center, although their living quarters were not built there. Taino Indians. The Arawakan achievements included construction of ceremonial ballparks, whose boundaries were marked by upright stone dolmens developed of a universal language, and the creation of a complicated religious cosmology. And now it goes into the island and island Caribs attacked Tainos. You could read that. All right. Let's go on some more. The Spanish Indian fusion. Let's read up just maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs so we could get an idea of what it is about. Cuba since 1510. Among the first conquistadors and among the new Spanish arrivals, particularly the men from the Canary Islands and the Galicia, many were known to take 1 or more wives among the Indian villages. So once again, they were taking over wives, okay? And as you can see, it speaks of the conquistadors. Coming from where? The Canary Islands. Where did Christopher Columbus go first? To the Canary Islands. Who brought him to the Canary Islands? The Moors. So who brought them? So who were the dark-skinned conquistadors? I have done videos showing you that they were the Moors, all right? There were noted alliances and nuclei of the mestizajes stemming from these early intermarriages. In Santo Domingo, they settled along the Yaqui River and into the Miriam River. This nascent native feudalism claimed hegemony over whose tribes and was a subtle breakaway from Columbus's factoria system. The concubinage system set up by the old chiefs and some new Spanish men, both in Cuba and Puerto Rico, and the Guatiano exchange of name ceremonies in Santo Domingo created a few somewhat ordained mestizajes, one that would sustain a core of indigenous traditions to modern times. There were incidents of sympathetic individual Spanish men marrying Indian women and thus removing the caciques and their particular tribes from the encomienda system. Now, let me explain to you exactly what was happening. Because the culture and the royalty, okay, and was passed down through the women. One of the ways to get rid of the cacique, which was the chief, was to actually marry the women. And then they would gain that power. The women would have to put them in place to be the new chiefs. All right. So now you are seeing why the Spaniards mixed in with the dark-skinned Indians gave you that variation of the so-called looking Indians with the kind of like the Mexican hair, but you could tell they have a little dark skin in them, but they look like Spaniards. All right. So now you are seeing that is what's happening here. Okay. The Spanish did this mostly to gain labor advantages and at times as a way to remove themselves from the central authority altogether. For the remaining Indian caciques, it was a way to marry their remaining people and take status as one of the new people. neither white nor pure Indian Taino, but with at least the ability to establish families and hold the land. The conquistadors took after this practice whenever they could. All right. So you could read some more on that if you want to. All right. It speaks about the Taino culture before the Spanish arrival in the so let us read a little bit about that. And of course, you could go in detail and read all that yourself. All right. Taino culture was dominant throughout the Caribbean, a sea and island world that was in turn the cradle of Taino civilization. In agriculture, seafaring and cosmology, Sinobini and Guanahatabe, Western Cuba, Macorex and or Sigayo, Bahoyi, and even Carib, Lesser Antilles, all followed the matriarchal and much of the psycho-spiritual framework of the Taino. Okay, matriarchal. All right, like I told y'all before, all over the Americas we had a matriarchal system. All right, the original Caribbeans spoke Arawak. That Arawak was a language. So when people just like Ani and we are, just like Cherokee, they're all languages. Okay, but that is the name they gave to the people. That's what the colonizers did. But the original Caribbeans spoke Arawak. That was a language, and we had many variations of Arawak dialects. Okay, the people of the Arawak language family still comprise one of the more widespread American indigenous cultures, with relatively large kinship nations in the Amazon and Orinoco River basins of South America, throughout the Caribbean, usually in remote mountain ranges and coastal promontories. Remnant groups and communities of Taino, Arawak, and Carib descendants survive to the present. Aspects of the animistic and material culture of the Taino, Arawak have been adopted by the Mestizino population of the Caribbean and are interwoven into the Euro-African fabric of the island's folk universe. So once again, it is showing you that the Euro and the African mixed in with our people. All right. So a lot of us may have so-called European ancestors, and that's a fact. It's something that we can't deny. All right. The word Taino meant men of the good, and from most indications, the Tainos were good, coupled to the lush and hospitable islands over a millennium and a half. The indigenous people of La Tiana developed a culture where the human personality was gentle. Among the Taino at the time of contact, by all accounts, generosity and kindness were dominant values among the Taino peoples as with most indigenous lifeways. The physical culture was geared toward a sustainable interaction with the natural surroundings. My brothers and sisters, that is what I want to bring you guys back to. All right, come back to our natural surroundings, the land. That's our culture. That's when we thrive the most. Okay, the concrete jungle is not conducive to our spiritual growth. Okay, the Taino's culture has been designated as primitive by Western scholarship, yet it prescribes a life way that strove to feed all people, and a spiritually that respected in ceremony most of their main animal and food sources, as well as the natural forces like climate, season, and weather. So you see, once again, the spiritually that respected, we respected the animals, the food that we eat. All right, we thanked the animals before we did any sacrifice, before we took their meat. We had ceremonies, okay, so that we could make sure that the spirit of the animal goes off and it's not killed in any type of brutal way or barbaric way or with stress. We didn't stress our animals, so therefore when we ate the meat wasn't stressed. Okay. And of course, we paid homage to nature, the seasons, the weather. All right. The Taino lived respectfully in a bountiful place, and so their nature was bountiful. My brothers and sisters, This is what I want to bring my brothers and sisters back to. A sustainable way of life. Okay? That is who we are. The naked people. Columbus first sighted an island world of rainforest and tropical weather and an adventure and fishing legends at sea. Can you imagine going back to that? Man, that's beautiful. Theirs was a land of generous abundance by global terms. All right, the land of milk and honey, the Garden of Eden. Everything that we needed, we had. Everything that we had, we needed. We just had in abundance. They could build a dwelling from a single tree, the royal palm, and from several other Gomer Sebar, a canoe that could carry more than 100 people. The houses, bohíos, were and are today among Dominican and Cuban cohiros, made of palm trees, trunk and thatch, latched together in a rectangle or sometimes a circle pattern. The islands still have millions of royal and other useful palm trees, from which bohíos by the hundreds of thousands could be built. The wood of the royal palm is still today considered the most resistant to tropical rot, lasting untreated as long as 90 years. All right. The Tainos lived in the shadows of a diverse forest, so biologically remarkable as to be almost unimaginable to us. And indeed, the biological transformation of their world was so complete in the intervening centuries that we may never again know how the land or the life of the land appeared in detail. All right, brothers and sisters, so I'm trying to get you to envision the type of life that we lived in nature. Okay? What we do know is that their world would appear to us as it did to the Spanish of the 15th century, as a tropical what? Paradise. Okay? We lived in paradise. So don't let nobody fool you. We didn't come here on no damn slave ships. Okay? We lived in paradise. We lived in the Garden of Eden. Okay? Don't let nobody fool you with that. When they came, that's what they saw. The land of milk and honey. The land of streets of gold. And they inject that in the Bible. All right? It was not heaven on earth, but it was one of those places that was reasonably close. You hear that? It was not heaven on earth, but it was close. All right? Oh, really? It is not a chicken, but you know what? It's kind of close to a chicken. Man, listen, if it looks like a chicken, it quacks like a chicken, it eats like a chicken, it shit like a chicken, well, damn it, it is a chicken. All right? So don't tell me it wasn't heaven, but guess what? It was reasonably close. Like, how the hell do you know what heaven looked like? The only way for you to compare heaven to heaven is to see heaven. So damn it, you came and you saw heaven, so just call it what it is. It's simple as that. The Taino world, for the most part, had some of the appearance that modern imaginations ascribe to the South Pacific Islands. The people lived in small, clean villages of neatly appointed thatched dwellings along rivers, inland, and on the coast. They were handsome people who had no need of clothing for warmth. You hear that? Handsome people. And people wonder why I say I'm handsome. People think I'm considered. No, because I came from a handsome group of people. All right? And that's why I don't like wearing clothes. That's part of my culture. Damn it. They liked to bathe. Oh, yes, absolutely. They loved to bathe often, which prompted a Spanish royal law forbidding the practice. Imagine that. You came, you met us. We love to bathe. We love to stay clean. And you're going to pass a law. How are you going to pass a law to forbid us from bathing? Like, are you serious? My brothers and sisters, if only you knew what our people had to go through, man. You meet a people who love to bathe. Now you want to pass a law to forbid them from bathing. What type of nasty shit is that? Damn. For we are informed it does them much harm, wrote Queen Isabella. Their general physical appearance was consistent with the appearance of other Indians of the Americas. You hear that? The general appearance was consistent with the appearance of other Indians of the Americas. So if they were dark, if they were copper, then what were the complexion of the other Indians? Duh. Man, they were rarely taller than 5'6", which could make them rather small to modern North American eyes. They painted their bodies with earth dyes and adorned themselves with shells and metals. Men and women chiefs often wore gold in the ears and nose as pendants around the neck. You hear that? That is something we have always done. Some had tattoos from all early descriptions, and the Tainos were a healthy people who showed no signs of distress from hunger or want. All right? So brothers and sisters, like I told y'all before, a lot of times you go to the doctor, they tell you, oh, you're stressed. You know, don't avoid stress. That's not true. The body needs stress. Okay? Is what you don't need is de-stress. You hear that? The people who showed no signs of de-stress. De-stress is what you don't need, but you need stress. Okay? Man, I'm teaching y'all the facts. Okay? Your body needs stress. That's why when you go into a heart attack, they have to take the what you call you know that thing they go, you know, they put on your heart and they go clear 1, boom, clear 2. That is to put stress on your heart because you need stress. What you don't need is de-stress. So when people are talking about I'm stressed out, man, they teach our people so backwards, man. It's a damn shame. All right? It's a shame. Taino villages, Caribbean, 1490s. The Tainos, whose color was olive brown to copper. Oh my goodness. Like, seriously. How much more proof do y'all want that you are the original people of the Americas, man? Like, how much more can I show you? Show me one native, okay, that's copper. Show me one native that's brown. I'll wait. And I'm talking about from the standards of what they call native today. I'll wait. You know what? I don't want to wait too long because it's not going to happen. All right? Reminded Columbus of the people of the Canary Islands, who were neither white nor black. You hear that? We were not black. You hear that? Who were neither white nor black. So for all you people who love to call yourself black, you ain't black, okay? And you got me speaking like a nigga. You ain't black. I'm just saying, brothers and sisters, I mean, how much more proof do you want? Huh? He noted their thick black hair and short short in front and long in the back, and that it fell over the muscular shoulder. The muscular shoulder. On some islands, the women wore short cotton skirts after taking a permanent man, but in others, all the people went naked. So the culture was mostly everybody walk around naked, but when the women got a permanent man, they had to wear some type of clothing as a matter of respect, because now that her body has to be covered to a certain extent, all right, because she was already taken. So that was part of the culture. But before that, people would walk around naked. And of course, you know, that's how, you know, you mate, you attract to each other. But once you connect, then part of the culture is that woman is supposed to cover up at least her loin area. Okay. All righty. Where are we? In parts, this is where I'm at right here, guys. All right, right here. In parts of Cuba and Santo Domingo, some of the cacique, a cacique is a chief, villages or clans and nation chiefs wore a type of tunic on the ceremonial occasions, but they saw no apparent need to cover their breast or genitals, and they were totally natural about it. All right, so we walk around swinging. All right, the Taino had plenty of cotton, which they wove into mats, hammocks, and small sails, and numerous bohicos of fiber ropes. The Taino Islands provided a vast array of edible fruits. The Arawaks made specific use of many types of trees and plants, from an estimated floral and funeral range of 5,800 species. The hagua, you know the hagua, you get that? Which is the jaguar. The jaguar tree they used for dyeing cotton. The jacuma and the kwama for making rope. The jacoru for underwater construction. The royal palm for building, and specific other trees for boats, spears, digging tools, chairs, bowls, baskets, and other woven mats. In this they flourished. Cotton cloth for hammocks, large fishing nets, and gold hooks, made of large fish bones. Now you hear that? The jaguar tree. The jaguar tree. So if we had the jaguar tree, then we definitely had the jaguar animal, right? So man, you have to realize what's indigenous to our land, man. Don't let these people fool you, brothers and sisters. Don't let them fool you with their lies. All right? Don't let them fool us with the lies. Inspecting deserted seashore camps, Spanish sailors found what they judged to be excellent nets and small fishing canoes stored in water-right sheds. Now, even before I continue, I'm just saying, like, literally, we were underwater construction. I mean, think about it, right? You're telling us we came from Africa on slave ships, but yet still we were here before Columbus and we had underwater construction. You feel me? We had huge civilizations, and you damage everything that we have to wipe away our culture and build anew so you could take credit for it. The nerve of these people. Further upriver, the villages, they saw large fields of corn, yucca, beans, and fruit orchards covering whole valleys. They walked through the squares of villages, all recently swept clean, where they saw many kinds of drying tubers, grains, and herbs, and sunlight tight storage sheds with shelves packed with thousands of dried cachet or kasabi torts. In one village, sailors found large cakes of fine wax or local products. All right, so you see that we had shelves, I mean, literally storage sheds with shelves packed with thousands. So my question to you today is this: what if the government decide to take your food away from you? How are you going to survive? Huh? Because you see, a lot of our people have lost the culture of providing for ourselves, to be self-sustained. So I'm trying to bring that back. The Taino were a seagoing people and took pride in their courage, ocean, as well as their skill in finding their way around their world. They visited one another constantly. Columbus was often astonished at finding lone Indian fishermen sailing in the open ocean as he made his way among the islands. Once a canoe of Taino men followed him from island to island until one of their relatives, held captive on Columbus' flagship, jumped over the side to be spirited away. All right, so once again, yes, we interacted with each other. All right, you would just find one Indian just chilling by himself. That was part of our culture. Among Tainos, the women and some of the men harvested corn, nuts, and other roots. They appeared to have practiced a rotation method in their agriculture, as in the practice of many other American indigenous ecosystem people. The first shots of important crops, such as yucca, beans, and corn, were appreciated in ceremony, and there are stories about their origins. Boys hunted fowl from flocks that darkened the sun, according to Columbus, and the men forded rivers and braved oceans to hunt and fish for the abundant tree-going juicia, the succulent manatee, giant sea turtles, and countless species of other fish, turtles, and shellfish. Around every Bahamas route there were flocks of tame ducks, yakoza, which the people roasted and ate. You hear that? We had giant turtles. No wonder why they call us the Turtle Islanders. Father Bartholomew de las Casas, the Spanish farer who arrived on Columbus's heels and lived to denounce the Spanish cruelty toward the Indians into the next century, wrote exaggeratedly but impressively about vineyards that ran for 300 leagues, game birds taken by the tens of thousands, great circular fields of yucca and greater scores of dried fish, cornfields, and vast gardens of sweet yams. The Tainos along the coast of Hispaniola and southern Cuba kept large circular corrals made of reeds, which they filled with fish and turtles by the thousands. In parts of Puerto Rico and Cuba, Jivaro and Cujiro fishermen and used this method into the 1950s. All right? Up to the 1950s, they used that method. The early Taino and Siboney of Cuba were observed catching fish and turtles by way of remora, suction fish, tied by the tail. Fernandez Mendez, Eugenio, Los Caroles de Pesca, Indigenous de Puerto Rico, Revista del Instituto de Cultura Puertorriqueño, October 1960. The Taino world of 1492 was a thriving place, all right? But yet still they say we came from Africa on slave ships, right? And what did the History Channel say? Let's just go real quick. Let me just remind y'all. The History Channel said what? Their skin was dark, okay? Their skin was dark. So don't let them play the games with y'all. All right, let me come back here. All right. I know it has a slight delay, so you might see that after. But anyway, the Taino world of 1492 was a thriving place. The Taino Islands supported large populations that had existed in an environment of Carib-Taino conflict for, according to archaeological evidence, 1.5 millennia, although the earliest human fossil in the region is dated at 15,000 years. Tainos and Caribs may have visited violence upon one another, and there is little doubt they did not like each other, but there is little evidence to support any thesis that genocidal warfare existed in this world. A Carib war party arrived and attack was successful or repulsed, and the Tainos, from all accounts, returned what they were doing before the attack. These attacks were not followed by the sustained campaign of attrition. The Taino existence was not threatened from these accounts more than a modern American's existence is threatened by street crime. All right. So you guys can read that. All right. Taino culture development. All right. That you could read. And they're showing here a census of in 1771. They're showing that they were whites, 31,000. All right. Of course, they were considered slaves. Then you have Indians. But let me explain something to y'all here. All right. You will see that they have Indians and free colors. All right. Remember, we are the copper-colored races. Okay. So those Indians right here could have been enslaved Indians. All right. Enslaved Indians. But the free coloreds were Indians, yes, but they were free coloreds because they owned lands. Free coloreds normally own lands. Free Negroes could have been the Africans. All right. Mulatto could have been the mix, not necessarily with white and Indian or black, but it could have been also with African and Indian, even if this the same colored people. those were called mulattoes. It depends. Mulatto was just a mix. It doesn't necessarily always equate so-called black and white. All right. It was a different, it was breeds mixing, breeder mixing. So if an African mixed with an American Indian, even if they were both dark skinned, they were still considered a mulatto because they were two different race of people. Okay. And then you had the Negro slaves. So you see, you had free Negroes and you had the Negro slaves. All right. So that sometimes could get a little bit confusing. Okay. Mapa Cacical de Puerto Rico, Boniquen, results of the blah, blah, blah census. All right. Pre-Columbus culture. All right. I'm going to read a little bit about that because it's a little bit interesting. I hope you guys are still with me. I know you are. All right. For those of you who have to work, and I know you gotta get some rest, go ahead and you could always check it out later. Pre-Columbian cultures. Pre-Columbian cultures perceived the world and everything in it as alive with supernatural power, including features of the landscape, mountain, caves, rivers, trees, and sea, as well as the souls of animals and people. The earth was a thin interface between the watery depths and the expanse of the heavens, a flat disk floating in the vast cosmos of water and stars. They call it a disk, right? In the center of its surface, an imaginary circular hole known as the fifth direction connected the earth to the sacred spaces above and below. The fifth direction was part of the vertical opening, a supernatural shaft, which went from the bottom of the sea through the earth and into the center of the heavens. Many pre-Columbian societies associated the fifth direction, opposed to the fifth dimension, with the Siba, the world tree. Sound like the tree of life, don't it? Whose roots grew from the depths of the sea and whose branches supported the heavens. All right? The Siba is still regarded as the sacred Mesoamerica, South America, and the Caribbean. All right, brothers and sisters, put two and two together. That could have been the tree of life. Spiritual beliefs. The spirits that preceded over the cosmos included a creator and many other associated with rain, wind, the sea, human fertility, and the successful growth of crops. At the beginning of time, these spirits blanketed the cosmos with invisible layers of geometric designs, symmetrical motifs that covered the faces and bodies of people, animals, communities, the earth, the heavens, and the sea. These designs, the cosmos tissues of connectedness that unites the universe, could be seen only by caciques and shamans during Cahoba ceremonies. Illness, bad crops, and natural disasters such as hurricanes were caused by destructive spirits that ripped holes in the geometric fabric of the world. The Taino believed they were descended from the primordial union of a male cultural hero. Now, get this, all right? I want you guys to pay attention to who they thought the mother was, all right? The Taino believed they were descended from the primordial union of a male culture hero named Dominican and a female turtle. You hear the culture? Why do you think they call it Turtle Island? How many of you knew that? That was the culture of the Taino. They thought that they descended from a primordial union of a male culture hero and named Dominican and a female turtle. That's what they thought they came from, of course. Similar creation stories persist among contemporary societies in Venezuela and Guyanas. Images of turtles and figures with turtle attributes are omnipresent in the Taino act because in their mythology, the wife of the Dominican turtle woman, so you hear that? Turtle woman, Turtle Island, right? I mean, you can't make this up. Was the ancestral mother, and the Taino traced their kinship relations through her. Dualism and the unity of opposites are important themes in pre-Columbian art, ideas that were expressively depicted by the Taino. The Menon himself wears a female turtle carapace on his back, and thus represents the union of male and female and father-mother in the same figure. Why do you think when they have the Ninja Turtles, they have the turtle on the back? What do you think it's representing? My brothers and sisters, they are telling you our stories and our history in so many ways. Ninja Turtles, huh? Man, all I could do is just laugh. This is just so funny to me, man. It's sad. It's sad, but it's funny, but it's not funny. You know what I mean? It's mind-boggling. The theme of the duality is further illustrated by beautiful ceramic vessels that combine symbols of life and death and images of male and female fertility. Taino ancestors. Like other pre-Columbian cultures, the Taino venerated their ancestors. All right, now let us look at the definition of venerated. I mean, even if we may know what it means, but you know, again, we always want to read with understanding. So let's go look at venerated. Venerated, regard with great respect. Okay, regard with great respect, to revere, to worship, to exalt, to adore, to honor, esteem. All right. So that's what venerated means. Okay. So let us read that again so we could put it in perspective. Like other pre-Columbian cultures, the Taino venerated. In other words, we honored, we respected, we worshipped our ancestors. All right. Hence, the etymology of the word God means to evoke your ancestors, to pour libation. So you see how they're tricking you? They take away your spiritual culture, where we were worshiping our ancestors and told you it was pagan, came up with one word called God so that you could pray to their God opposed to your ancestors. Y'all gonna learn tonight though. And then they tell you, well, honor your mother and fathers. Okay. The dead were usually buried under their houses, but caciques and other high-ranking nobles were given special funerary rites. After exposure to the elements, their skulls and long bones were cleaned and preserved in carved wooden urns or large calabash. Guards hung from the rafters of the houses. Now, a calabash, let me explain to you what a calabash is, all right? I used to make those back in the islands. A calabash is literally, it's like a coconut shell. It is not a coconut shell per se, but we used to make them from different things. Yes, you could have made it from a coconut shell, but we had this other fruit that we made the calabash from. But I'm going to just use a coconut for example, because we did make calabash from the coconut. What you do is, once the coconut is dried, okay, not the jelly one, not the green one, the one that's dried, okay, once it's dried, what you do is you would cut the shell in two halves, and then you would take the inside out, the meat of the coconut. You would take it out, and that shell, it would become a calabash. All right, so calabash is a Creole word, okay, an indigenous word. So that's what it means. And sometimes instead of plates, we didn't want to use plates. Like when we don't want to use plates, especially when we go to the river or we go to the mountains, then we cook on 3 stones. Then we would have our calabash, okay, that we would put our food in. So I hope I'm giving you an idea or a vivid picture of what a calabash is. If for those of you who know what a coconut is, okay, once it's dried, you cut it in half, in 2 halves, okay, like you make two half circles, so to speak, and you take the meat out from inside of it, and then that empty space, you know, it becomes like a bowl. It is called a calabash. All right. There's also another fruit that we used to do the same thing with, but it was a bigger one. All right. So that's what it is. Although the souls of the dead resided in the other world, they returned to earth at night and were dangerous to the living. Night-flying creatures such as owls and bats were regarded as their messengers. Many objects made by the Taino bear images of skulls, bats, and owls, reflecting their connection to the realm of the spirits and the ancestors. All right? 3 pointers. In addition to these evocative objects, the exhibition includes a selection of 3-pointed trigonolitos, enigmatic stone objects that are particularly characteristic of Taino art. Small 3-pointed pointers have been excavated by archaeologists at sites with early dates 400 to 200 BC in South America and in the Caribbean, but these examples predate their widespread appearance among the Taino. Spanish accounts from the time of contact make tantalizing references to the trigonolitos, but fail to pinpoint their true significance. Modern scholars have debated whether these triangular stones represent mountains, volcanoes, breast palaces, manioc shots, or all of these at once. Some 3-pointers may depict the Yucca spirit. Others combine multiple images and suggest the visions that the caciques and shamans experience on the influence of Cahuba. Okay? Hallucinogens. All right, that's what, after saying it a few times, you see now I can say it, right? Hallucinogens. Throughout the ancient Americas, rulers and shamans used hallucinogens to connect with the spirit of the other world. All right, so sometimes it was done naturally, and other times they used different plants. But people were always guided by a shaman or what's called a ruler or a priest. All right, only those in touch with the supernatural realm could heal the sick, predict the future, ensure the fertility of the world, and resolve the larger the problems of existence. All right, so yes, our ancestors could have predicted the future. So when we wrote things down on paper or on the walls, not paper, but on the walls, then what the invaders did, what the colonizers did, they came, they took those stories and they defaced those properties. And of course, they're going to tell you it came from somebody else. So now there goes your prophecy in your Bibles. All right. I'm showing y'all the facts. Yes. Yes. Something kind of like the pumpkin as well, too. All right. That could be considered a calabash. It depends on what you're putting in there. All right. So where was I? I got a little bit distracted here. Okay, we were talking about, okay, yes. Only those in touch with the supernatural realm could heal the sick, predict the future, ensure the fertility of the world, and resolve the larger problems of existence. So, my brothers and sisters, if we don't go back to our culture, you see, we cannot heal the world. All right? And I'm showing you proof again. The fertility of the world lies in the hands of the American Aborigine. And until we go back into our ancestral ways, into our natural organic ways, the world will continue to suffer. And that's a fact. Because we are the guardians of this world. We are. And everybody knows that. When our women died, in other words, when our women fell to their lower selves and endowed with inherent force, their preparation and ingestion were associated with elaborate rituals, and they were consumed only by people. All right. Oh man. All right. So I see what's happening here now. All right, guys. I see that they have count out my camera, so I'm not. You could hear me, but you're not able to see what I'm reading. So you know what? I think that's probably a clue. That's probably a clue. They're trying to tell me, hey, Chief, you know what? You've been on here forever, so we're about to shut you down. All right, but it's all good though. Brothers and sisters, you know, the rest of the information is here, and you could definitely, because you can't see what I'm reading because they took my camera out. All right. So, but anyway, there is one that says Taino interpretation of the Kahaba ceremony, the Kahaba ritual. I could read the Kahaba ritual. Ceramic figures on Dojos illustrates stages of the Kahaba ritual, from the initial use of the spatula to the aftermath of the super fatigue and spiritual exhaustion. Once the hallucinogen was inhaled through the snuffers, the cacique or shaman would sit in his doho, elbows resting on his knees, body hunched forward, once in the thoughts and images that would result from Kohaba's swift effect. In this position, caciques and shamans communicated with the spirits and ancestors. The dohos themselves probably had inherent supernatural powers. You hear that? Probably had supernatural powers, which centered the user in the fifth direction. But they tell you fifth dimension, right? Dimension opposed to direction. Man, I'm telling you, man, because direction, not dimension, okay? In the center of the cosmos, a concept important to pre-Columbian societies. All right, brothers and sisters, so it's the fifth direction. It is not the fifth dimension. All right? Hierarchy of deities. There was a hierarchy of deities who inhabited the sky. The Yokaho was the supreme creator, and Yokaho is spelled Y-O-C-A-H-O. Y-O-C-H-A-H-O. We have to go back to our ancestral ways and our ancestral cultures and our ancestral deities. That's what we have to call out too. We have to stop worshiping the deities of these colonizers, because their gods and their deities work for them and not us. Okay? So even me, myself, I'm taking note of that, because I'm going to start calling out to our ancient deities. Okay? Yokaho. It is spelled Y-O-C-A-H-U. All right? And was the supreme creator. All right? Supreme creator. Let me put a note on that. Supreme creator. The link is below, brothers and sisters, so you could always check it out. Another god, Jurakan, was perpetually angry and ruled the power of the hurricane. All right? Number 2, Jukahan. And that's spelled J-U-R-A-K-A-N. Jakan. No, not Jakan. Joe Rakan. J-U-R-A-K-A-N. Jorakan was perpetually angry and ruled the power of the hurricane. All right, so ruled power of hurricane. Ruled power of hurricane. So when them hurricanes come around again, I'm gonna have to reach out to, you know, Joe Rakan and be like, yo, son, chill, handle that, son. All right. Other mythological figures were the gods of Zemi and Mabayo. The Zemis, a god of both sexes, were represented by icons in the form of human and animal figures and colors made of wood, stone, bones, and human remains. All right? Zemi was a god which had both sexes. Taino Indians believed that being in the good graces of other Zemis protected them from disease, hurricanes, or disasters in war. They therefore served cassava, manioc, all right, bread as well as beverages and tobacco to their Zemis as proprietary offerings. Mayab and Zemis is spelled Z-E-M-I. And Maboyas is spelled M-A-B-O-Y-A-S. All that stuff is in the link below, so you could always check it out. I'm just letting you know, spelling it out, so seeing that you can see what I'm reading, you could get the information. All right. On the other hand, was a nocturnal deity who destroyed the crops and was feared by all the natives to the extent that elaborate sacrifices were offered to placate him. All right. So this one here was destroying the crops. So we don't want to pray to this one. All right. Destroy crops. So I'm gonna have to stay away from this bad boy right here. All right. And we have myth of traditions. Myths and traditions were perpetuated through ceremonial dances, ayetos, drum beats. So ayetos, drum beats, oral traditions, and a ceremonial ball game played between opposing teams of 10 to 30 players per team. With a rubber ball, winning this game was thought to bring a good harvest and strong, healthy children. Hierarchy of tribes. The Taino Indians lived in theocratic kingdoms and had hierarchically arranged chiefs or caciques. The Tainos were divided into three social classes: the Naborias, the work class, the Natianos, or the subchiefs, and the noblemen, which includes the Bohiquis, or the Bohiques, or priests and medicine men, and the caciques or chiefs. Each village or Yukayeki had one. Okay, so of course they talking about the traits which we read before. Their complexion was bronze colored, the dress customs, the craft, the skills, the pottery. All right, they go in detail about the Zuni, what the Zuni look like, special tools, religious artifacts. All right, the calendar system. They had no calendar or writing system and could count only up to 20 using their hands and feet. You hear that? They had no calendar or writing system and they could only count to 20 using their hands and feet. All right, personal possessions. Their personal possessions consisted of wooden tools, etc. The housing, they describing the houses. The Caribs, Taino, Indians frontier, the Spanish settlers, the Taino rebellion, the Taino prehistoric era. Okay, so all that stuff is in there. All right, so you guys could go ahead and read that for yourselves. And I'm about to conclude this because you guys can't see what I'm reading. They have the games that they played. All right. The meaning of the game. The Batty ceremonial ball court of game. So it's a lot of information here, man. So please go ahead and read that, brothers and sisters. I'm about to conclude this because you really can't see what I'm reading. But I just want to tell you guys, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for hanging in there with me. And once again, man, we have a lot of work to do. All right, to connect back to what's ours. All right. So I'm just saying, let me see. The church took a deep interest in the fate of the Antillean Arawak. So they're talking about what the church did, you know, and when the church came in and all that stuff. You know, Fred Pran, you know, it says, well, they're talking about the churches, you know, them being converted to Christianity. And you have the Jesuits Christianization campaign. All right. So once again, they're showing you that. And I'm going to read a little bit of that. It says, the earliest attempts at Christianization are due to the Jesuits. They made previous to 1602 6 distinct efforts to convert the Chonchos from the side of the Honoko in Peru and from the northern Bolivia. By all these attempts were failures. All right. So our ancestors were fighting Christianity. All the attempts the Jesuits tried to Christianize our people failed prior. Okay, I'm just saying. There are also traces that Jesuit had penetrated those regions in 1581, more as an explorer than as missionary. Notwithstanding the ill success accompanying the first efforts, The Jesuits preserved and founded missions among the Mocos or the Moxos, one of the most southerly branches of the Arawaks, and also among the Brures. Those missions were, of course, abandoned after 1767. During the past century, the Franciscans have taken up the field of which the Jesuits were deprived, especially the missions between the Pano and the Shepibao tribes of Beni region of Bolivia. All right, so they're showing you that, yes, they were trying to Christianize our ancestors, and they failed because our ancestors were fighting that. All right, so again, Christianity is not our language. I mean, it's not our religion. And of course, they're giving a summary. It's a great read. So take your time, read it. It also says the chronology of the Taino Indians. All right, that's in there as well, all the way down from what, 200 BC up to 1493 to the 1500s, all the way up to the 1600s, the 1700s, the 1800s. All right, so it's a lot of information in there. You could do your own studies. All right, so guys, I thank you guys for tuning in. I'm about to conclude this, and I'm certainly sure we'll get a chance to do a live again. So thank you so much for being a part of this live feed. I really appreciate it. Okay, yeah, because they just totally took me out right there. All right, so guys, thank you. Let me just type in here, seeing that you guys can't see me but you can hear me. Let me just say peace and love to y'all in the chat. All right, and you guys have a great continuation, and we will talk another time. I hope you guys enjoyed that information that it says, let me stop sharing the screen. I hope you guys enjoy the information, man. I had a great time sharing that with y'all. All right, hey, it is time. All right, it is time to step up the game. All right, always, you're welcome, brother. We still got a lot of work to do. I know, like I said earlier in the live feed that I did, you have a lot of documents that I gave you guys as gifts. Send those out. All right, listen to the videos, follow the instructions. It is time to step up. It is time to regain the throne. All right, there's no denial as to who the original people are. So the question remains, what are we going to do now? Okay, what are we going to do now? We don't have to convince ourselves it's us. We know it's us. The question is, how are we moving forward? That is the question. Action. And that's what I'm about right now. Okay, so I'm making an attempt to give you information to build yourself, to protect yourself, to move forward so that we can regain what's ours. All right, so thank you. Have yourself a great continuations. Don't sleep but rest. All right, sleep to me just sound a little too permanent. Okay, so you guys have a great one.